Black towers appeared across the world, turning ordinary people into awakened hunters. But Bong Joo-hyuk was just a quiet part-time worker, until a system suddenly awakened him as a summoner. Now he's clearing entire tower floors in seconds, with skilled characters from other worlds fighting for him. The problem? He's such an introvert that he keeps running away from the Hunter Association, trying to recruit him. Can the most antisocial man alive keep hiding while becoming an SS rank monster? The story begins with two men sitting on a staircase. One of them spat on one of the steps. His friend slapped him on the back and said, "Damn, I got it on my foot." He replied, "Hey, they have to go." His friend looked back, laughed, and looked at the protagonist, telling him to look at that idiot. And the protagonist thought this dorm was so dirty and constantly noisy. A tiny 16 square meter room on the roof. His home. He stopped near the door, then took off his hood and, sighing loudly, said, "Ramen for dinner again." Bong Joo-hyuk, 25 years old, no profession, 3 part-time jobs, a barbecue shop, a restaurant, and a construction site. There's a simple reason why, taking all the part-time jobs into account, the money doesn't add up. Debts. Money that needs to be repaid, even if it means living in poverty. He has no special skills, only a healthy body. So, no bright future awaits him. Yeah, just a mediocre beta life. The protagonist was eating ramen when suddenly everything around him lit up, and a system window appeared in front of him, saying that Mr. Joo-hyuk had awakened. He looked at it in surprise, then spat out his wound and screamed, "Hot damn, scared me." Then he looked back at the system window and asked, "Awakened? Him? Awakening? People sometimes call it a blessing. If you're lucky, you can hit the jackpot and completely change your life. Maybe even cooler than winning the lottery, but you can only enjoy it if you survive." The tower he must conquer is an incredibly dangerous place. Monsters can tear him to shreds, he can also freeze to death or burn to ashes. There's also the option of dying from poison, and the unpleasant option of being crushed by a trap ceiling, and other dangers. If he sees injustice, he tries not to interfere. He would never voluntarily get into a situation that seemed even slightly dangerous. He was a low-ranking person and a simple man. Joo-hyuk, who had lived like this for 25 years. Then the protagonist placed his chopsticks on the table and thought, but awakening? Was this really awakening? Maybe he just passed out from fatigue? Then he moved his hand forward and said, "Status window." A system window with his stats appeared in front of him. He looked at it again and said, "It's true. His trade is a summon. An awakened person is granted an ability known as a trade. There are different types: fencing, spearmanship, shield, bow shooting, martial arts, gigantification, crushing, summoning, healing, and many others. Among them, summoning is known for allowing the use of creatures such as spirits, ghostly beasts, golems, and magical beasts. This ability, which allows the use of different summoned creatures, he thought in surprise, what kind of summoner is he? He doesn't know. Since he's awakened, maybe he should try a cool skill? Then he pointed his hand forward and shouted, "Summon." He blushed with embarrassment and asked, "Random summon?" After that, he stood up and awkwardly scratched the back of his head, saying, "Exactly. He can't use it outside the tower. Player abilities, including skills, only work inside the tower and can't be activated outside. Except for being able to check the system status window. A player outside the tower is no different from an ordinary person." Then he thought, this is common knowledge. If you look it up online, he was an idiot. The skill shouldn't be used outside the tower. Then a system window appeared in front of him, saying, "Initiating random summon." His eyes widened in surprise. He thought, huh? Suddenly, everything in his room lit up, and John Corsack appeared in front of him. MC asked in surprise, "Wait, what? Why does this work?" A human, Corsack, smiling, stood in front of him and noticed that it was true. He is a human. The protagonist thought, what the? Not only does it work outside the tower, but the summoning even succeeded, and it's not a regular summoned creature like a spirit or a golem, but a human. The next second, Corsack took a deep breath and said, "That smell." He turned to the table with food and asked, "Is that ramen? Can he have some?" The protagonist awkwardly replied, "Of course." He looked at him and thought, looks like he summoned a bandit from that neighborhood. Then Corsack started eating his noodles and said, "Spicy, damn. Looks like they've released a new spicy flavor." The protagonist wondered, does he consider soft udon spicy? In any case, it's unclear how the skill successfully activated outside the tower. And summoning a human too? He'd never heard of such a thing. Then he brought up the status window. There was information about summoning humans and demi-humans. He thought, so there are ranks here, just like random character drops in video games. Then the system added, the summoned adheres to the 3 principles. He was surprised. 3 principles? Then the 3 principles of the summoned were explained. First, the summoned must prioritize and protect the summoner's life. Second, the summoned must obey the summoner's orders without question. Third, if Principle 1 and Principle 2 conflict, Principle 1 takes precedence. The protagonist thought, absolute obedience? Sounds pretty good. So who is this summoned person? Then another system window appeared with information about Corsack. He was a black sheep in the Guild of Brutal Assassins, a truly insane killer. However, his mission success rate was 99%. He even succeeded in killing a 5th circle black mage, but his end was near. The next second, MC felt pain. He grabbed his head and thought, suddenly this information. Then he looked ahead in surprise, and the next second he began to transport himself to another space. He saw Corsack running straight at him, and thought, how? He looked to the side and noticed Corsack running towards several figures. He wondered if this was his past. At that moment, Corsack decapitated several of his opponents, and the protagonist wondered wondered why he was packing the heads. Was he giving this as a gift? His end was caused by a single failure. The assassination target was the Empire's strongest swordsman. Then Corsac was cut in two, and MC thought that this was his last memory. The next second, Corsac approached him from behind and asked what he was thinking about, and the protagonist recoiled from him in fear. Corsac extended his hand to him and said that he apologized for scaring him. He just wanted to know if there was anything he could do. The protagonist looked at him and thought, there's no need to be afraid. Summoned ones are completely subservient to their summoner. Then he sighed loudly, pointed to the kitchen, and said, Mr. Corsac, he must clean up the ramen pot. He answered, yes, sir. Then the protagonist added, he must wipe the table. Watching Corsac carry out his orders, he thought, wow, he's fast. Not a single complaint. He actually does everything he says. Then he called him, and Corsac told him to give orders. He asked, doesn't something ridiculous work? And Corsac, smiling, continued wiping the table and said, complete obedience to the summoner's words is mandatory. He replied, then he should bark for him like a dog. Not noticing an immediate reaction, MC wondered if he'd gone too far. In his past life, he was a powerful figure with great pride. What if he suddenly snaps and attacks? But the next second, Corsac started crawling on all fours and barking, and the protagonist, giving him a thumbs up, thought that this really was absolute obedience. Then they heard a knock outside the door, followed by a scream. Ju-hyuk! He's there, right? He has to open the door immediately, and the protagonist thought fearfully, damn, he forgot. Today is interest payment day. Then he said, Mr. Corsac, he has to get up quickly. He borrowed 10 million won. The banks wouldn't give him anything, so he had to resort to private loans. It was for his father's surgery after breaking his hip when he slipped on the ice, and for his youngest's university fees. He had no choice. He thought he would pay it off quickly, but the principal debt hadn't gone down, and he had already paid out over 5 million won in interest. Then he pursed his lip and thought, honestly, he knew this was stupid. What else could he do? He had no other choice. Even if he went back in time, he would do the same thing. Then the scream from outside the door repeated, Ju-hyuk? He just has to show his face. He needs to make sure he's alive, understand? And then the protagonist called Corsac, and he already took out his weapon, smiled and said to just give the order. He would cut off his head and bring it here. He said that wasn't the issue. He thought this guy was going to cause a huge problem. Then the MC started pushing him aside and told him to go hide in the bathroom and not move an inch. He had to keep his mouth shut and not make a sound. He asked, can I breathe? He said, of course. Corsac sighed and said, what a relief. The next second, the MC opened the door, and the man grabbed him by the neck and asked, so, Ju-hyuk, is he okay? He was worried he was sick since the interest hadn't arrived. He replied that he forgot and apologized. He had just sent the transfer. Then the man got close to his face and added, well, if he's having problems, he shouldn't overexert himself. If things get tough, he can just sell the organ. Lots of people live with one kidney. The man behind the door said he seemed to have a younger brother or sister, the boss. He said a brother or sister would do too. The younger, the higher the price. What's with that look? He looks like he's about to hit him. But in response, the protagonist looked at him awkwardly and, scratching the back of his head, asked, no way. Why would he do that? He replied that he should be more careful if he didn't want to disappear without a trace. After that, they closed the door behind them, and then Corsac came out of the bathroom, and the protagonist noticed him and noticed that he hid very quietly. He said he himself ordered it, didn't he? And MC thought that he suddenly felt squeezed. 2 part-time jobs, an awakening, a human summoning, and a visit from debt collectors. Debts. Does he really need to climb the tower? No, money is great, but a coward like him will never be able to conquer the tower. Then Corsac asked, so what should he do now? Ju-hyuk crouched on the floor and said he didn't know what he wanted to do. If he wanted to go back, he could use the summoning recall. And then Corsac, smiling, raised his hand and asked if he could watch TV. He thought he didn't know how he knew about TV or ramen, but there was no reason to refuse. He replied, of course he could. In response, Corsac shouted that he was grateful. He was only a few episodes into the drama. Sometime later, the protagonist was lying on the bed, and Corsac continued watching the drama, snippets of phrases echoing throughout the room. MC thought that even though he was a summoned creature, it was nice to have someone nearby. It was even somehow calming. Yes, until now he had been working himself to death in complete solitude, and that was how he lived. After some time, the protagonist turned off the alarm, then sat up in bed and, looking ahead, asked, Mr. Corsac, have you called him away? That's right. The manifestation period was 6 hours. It seemed he saw the system window while he was half asleep. Then he got out of bed and said, okay, wake up or not, he needs to get ready for work. At that moment, the news said they were interrupting this broadcast for breaking news. Early this morning, a horrific murder occurred at the office of the illegal private credit agency Smile Cash, located in Jongno-gu, Seoul. The protagonist thought, wait, Smile Cash? The news anchor said that 3 victims were found, all decapitated. At that moment, a toothbrush fell from the protagonist's hand, and the anchor added a shocking fact. The victims' heads were decorated with red ribbons. The MC said, decapitated heads and red ribbons? He wondered if it was Corsac. He grabbed his head and screamed in fear. For his sake, no, he just summoned a psychopathic killer. After a while, the protagonist scrolled through the newsfeed in horror and thought, they're dead, they're finished, they're doomed. No matter how you look at it, it was definitely Corsac. He bit his thumb out of nerves, and then he looked away, noticing how the debt collector's boss put his head on the feed and told him to count it, please. The protagonist continued to stare at what was happening in fear. And the man asked, will he ring up the goods? The next second, the MC jumped back in horror and screamed loudly. The girl standing across from him asked in surprise, is he okay? In response, he shouted, I'm apologizing. He's going to ring up everything now. After a while, he left work and thought that it was impossible to work in this state. Tomorrow he would take a day off from all his part-time jobs. Those people who were killed, was it because of him? After a while, he summoned the Guild of Cruelty's Mad Killer catalog. He looked at the contents and thought that he really was a mad killer. It wouldn't harm him as a summoner, but it was still scary. Then he moved his hand forward and said, Target summon Corsac. Then he saw a system window that said, before target summoning, please leave a satisfaction rating for Corsac. Please select the number of stars with a tap of his finger. He said, so that's why the catalog has a satisfaction rating, a star rating. He thought he was just telling him to watch TV, but he had committed an unauthorized murder. 1 star for arbitrariness. That's what he wants to give, but he can't be so heartless. After that, he clicked on 3 stars. And the system reported that Corsac's satisfaction rating was 3 stars. Then the protagonist thought that his mother works as a water filter rental coordinator. He knows very well how painful low ratings are. Even if there are complaints, he can't bring himself to give it a 1. Then the system reported that the target call had been completed. Corsac. He appeared before him and smiling said, at the first call, he's glad to see him again. He blushed with embarrassment and, clapping his hands, said that he was grateful for the 3 stars. He would try even harder. The protagonist looked at him and thought that he seemed so harmless. Could such a person really have killed 3 people? Then he told him to listen. Corsac told him to speak boldly, and he asked, those people who came to him yesterday, was it he, Corsac, who killed them? He replied that it was true. He dealt with them last night. The protagonist thought with fear, he is a murderer after all. So, a killer stands before him, his stomach twisted, his heart pounded. Calm, he wouldn't hurt him. Then he asked how he did it. He couldn't have known where their office was. He replied that when they broke into the summoner Juhyuk's house, he placed a tracking mark on them. MC thought in surprise, a tracking mark? Is that what this skill is? Then he asked, why? Why go so far? He replied, because they were a threat. It's better to eliminate such things beforehand. He said so, but he didn't even order him. And Corsac extended his hand forward and said that it was because of the 3rd point of the 3 principles of the summoned. Simply put, complete obedience. However, this can be violated if the summoner is in danger. That's what it means. Then the protagonist said thoughtfully, for example, if he, the summoner, ordered him to kill him, would he disobey? He smiled, gave him a thumbs up, and replied, exactly. Then the protagonist added, but there was no real threat. Wasn't that his personal decision? He noted that it was true. The 3rd point could be interpreted broadly. In his view, these people were a risk factor who would sooner or later become a threat to the summoner's life, so it was a very reasonable decision. And the MC screamed, no, this is just psychosis. Then he lowered his head, scratched the back of his head, and said that he apologized. Corsac put his hands in front of him and said, no matter, people say that to him often. The protagonist thought that he didn't understand. This could be very dangerous. He imagined himself walking down a crowded street with Corsac, and suddenly accidentally brushing his shoulder against some bandit. The one who was brushed would probably say, tired of living? Usually they don't intend to harm anyone. It's just a threat. But in Corsac's interpretation, a bow here, a bow there. He continued nervously biting his thumb, and Corsac looked at him, then knelt down and said that he apologized. The protagonist was surprised. Why had he suddenly fallen on his knees? He should stand up, and he could speak informally. He should listen carefully. Killing isn't something he should do for his own sake. On the contrary, it could get him into trouble. Corsac said, well, no one will ever know. He asked, he won't do that again, right? Corsac replied that he couldn't guarantee it, and the MC shouted at him to promise. If they put a knife to his throat, then maybe, but killing someone based solely on guesses. The next second, Corsac shouted, yes, he'll assess the situation better. After that, the protagonist sighed and thought about how obedient he was. And then he said, okay, he can go back. He said, summoner, but by chance? He asked. What? Corsac asked. He's not planning to conquer the tower? MC clenched his trembling fist and thought, right, conquering the tower is the chance of a lifetime. But honestly, he's scared. It's dangerous there. He could die. Then he looked at him and asked, were there other summoners? People who summoned him, Corsac, like him? He answered, there were. They were truly strong, brave people. The protagonist thought he was ashamed. Someone using their abilities to save the world. Then he turned away from him and said, he doesn't have the heart to risk his life. Corsac said, Summoner Juhyuk, truly. Before he could finish, the protagonist said that he knew he was a pathetic coward. But Corsac clenched his fists and said, the best summoner. MC looked at him in surprise and asked, huh? And Corsac grabbed him by the shoulders and asked, what is most important for a summoner? Safety above all. Courage is poison. The courage of a summoner is dangerous. Who knows when they'll die? And if he dies, they won't be able to get out. The protagonist thought, is that how it works? And then Corsac smiled and told him not to be afraid. He'll do all the dirty work. Summoner Juhyuk, please, he must take care of himself and live a long and happy life. After some time, the protagonist sat up in bed. He couldn't sleep. He'd been debating all night whether to climb the tower or not. He thought, where would he even climb that tower? He should be glad that the debts and debt collectors were gone and live peacefully. He'd continue to do a safe, ordinary job. If he worked hard, everything would work out, everything would be fine. Then his phone vibrated. He answered the call and said, "Yes, Dad. Is he gonna rehab? Oh, they said he needs to transfer to a bigger hospital? What? Did Mom get fired?" He replied, "Yeah, he shouldn't worry too much. He just called because he was lost, son." And then the protagonist said he'd stop by when he had time. They should eat together. Yeah, he shouldn't strain himself too much. Okay, bye. After some time, he stood with a bat and a road sign in his hand. He said, "Just the first floor." "No, just take a quick look and then straight back. If it gets dangerous, he'll leave immediately." Good thing he at least took all the part-time jobs. First, the summon. Stop. I don't have to mess with that Corsac psycho. Maybe I should try summoning someone else? Who knows? Maybe I'll get a legendary special super rare. Then the system said that random summoning was impossible. 28 days, 11 hours, 8 minutes, and 37 seconds left until the next random summon. MC, surprised, asked, "What? There's a cooldown? A whole month? So that's the end of it." The next second, Corsac appeared in front of him and said, "Summoner, he's grateful for the 5 stars. Link, he thought, he doesn't know he tried to summon someone else, right?" Then he waved and said, "Welcome." He decided, they'll go to the tower. Corsac was surprised already, and he's brave. Oh no, cancel. He can't be brave. The protagonist told him not to worry, they'll just stick their noses in and leave. He answered, as expected. He's very wise. He must put away these crude things. He took his bat and sign and added that he would be the tool and hunting dog of the summoner Juhyuk. He also waved his finger and added that he would deliver him comfortably and safely. Once they entered the tower, he wouldn't even lift a finger. He replied, "Oh well." The next second, the system asked, "Do you wish to enter the Black Tower, Republic of Korea? The available floor is 1. The protagonist looked at the system window and asked, "Well, are they coming?" And Corsac joyfully shouted, "Yes." The system reported, "Entrance to the Black Tower, Republic of Korea, 1st floor." MC began to fall into virtual reality. Corsac grabbed him by the hood and shouted at him to wait. They continued to plunge inside, while the protagonist screamed in fear. After some time, they found themselves in front of a barrier. The protagonist sat on the ground looking around. He thought, this is the inside of the Black Tower. The 1st floor is a complete wasteland. The next second, he felt sick and emptied his stomach. Corsac patted him on the back and asked if he was okay. He'd get used to it soon. Then they moved on. He suggested leaving the safe zone. Then the system announced that physical abilities had been strengthened according to level. Trades and combat skills were now available. MC looked ahead in surprise and thought, so this is what players feel. He looked at his hand, and then a system window appeared, stating the 1st floor's mission: defeat 5 thick larvae with tough skin. Time limit, 2 hours. Completion conditions: thick larvae with transparent skin, 0 out of 5. Failure conditions: death or abandoning the mission. Then Corsac smiled, looked ahead and said, "Ah, here they are." The 1st floor is a stage for testing skills. Are those thick, tough-skinned larvae some kind of training dummies? They have almost no attack power, but they're said to be difficult to kill because of their tough skin. The protagonist thought other players had said they'd barely managed to kill one in 30 minutes, but now he was a player too. He clenched his fist and, walking forward, said he'd try to take one down. Corsac was surprised. What? Why would he bother so much? And at that moment, the protagonist had already approached the larva and turning around, said, "Oh yes, a weapon. I should borrow Mr. Corsac's for a while." At that moment, the larva behind him reared up and revealed a huge maw. Then the protagonist looked at it, frightened, and asked Mr. Corsac for help. He gave him a thumbs up and remarked that it was a wise decision. The next second, he ran up to the larva and said, "So please, he must step back." With these words, he moved forward, throwing each larva aside. After that, he armed himself with a dagger, threw several at the surrounding larvae, and then he said, "Blade explosion." All the wounded larvae exploded around him. MC looked at this and said, "Wow, you took them all out in an instant." Then the system reported that he had completed the 1st floor mission. His level increased. The reward was 100 grams of magic stone. Notification: he received an S++ Conqueror rating for the 1st floor of the Korean Black Tower. The reward for conquering S++ was receiving a platinum badge. The protagonist thought, somehow this is too easy, so he will soon become rich. The real man, Juhyuk, did not yet know the fact that at that moment, identical notifications appeared for all players in South Korea. Then the system reported that he could challenge the 2nd floor. Exit from the Korean Black Tower. The next second, MC and Corsac were in the apartment, and the protagonist thought, so after subjugating them, they even return home immediately. He immediately took out his phone, thinking, wow, it's only been 5 minutes. Then Corsac bowed and said, "Summoner Juhyuk, great job." He replied, "No, he was just standing there doing nothing." Corsac smiled, pointing his fingers at him and said, "That was excellent." The protagonist thought he'd heard that others were completely exhausted while killing these larvae, but here it was all so simple. He looked at the items he'd received, then examined the crystal in his hand and said, "So it's a magic stone." Magic stones are a vital resource, indispensable in modern industry. Demand for them has dropped sharply since the tower's appearance. Now, it's around 50,000 won per 100 grams. It's been 20 years since black towers appeared in countries around the world. Most of the information about the tower is known even to ordinary people. But a platinum badge? He had never heard of anything like that. Anyway, he earned 50,000 won in just 5 minutes. Then Korsak smiled and said he was going to watch a drama. After a while, the protagonist suggested they eat together. The prepared food was lying on the table. Korsak took a few breaths and asked, "Were those spicy pork feet?" The MC was sitting across from him and replied that they weren't. He ordered regular ones since he said he couldn't stand spicy food. Korsak said he thinks he can smell something spicy. The protagonist thought he couldn't stand spicy food at all. Then Korsak smiled and took a small piece of meat, shouting, "But what can you do? Bon appetit." He offers thanks for his kindness. The protagonist replied, "No need to thank him, but Mr. Korsak?" He said, "Reboot." The protagonist asked, "Is this his usual manner or something else?" He replied, "Just a way to show respect." He asked, "What does he mean?" He replied that it was because he had been with the previous summoner for so long. The protagonist thought, like, what kind of influence does an ex-boyfriend have? You could say the influence of the previous summoner. Then Korsak added that if he didn't like hearing that, he would improve. MC was already laughing and noted that it wasn't true. It sounded very funny. Korsak also joined in the laughter. The protagonist thought, in any case, now he was convinced that he was not at all dangerous. Quite the opposite. Conquering the tower was entirely feasible. The next morning, the protagonist stood next to the daily routine of a real man. A store during the day, a grill bar in the evening. He decided to quit his day job, which he used to do in his free time. Instead, he comes home and conquers the tower with Korsak. After some time, Korsak appeared nearby and shouted in surprise, 5 points? He just doesn't know what to do with himself. The protagonist looked at him and said that if he could, he would give him a 10, and he replied that he was glad, that he was satisfied. Then the MC thoughtfully asked, "Is the satisfaction rating so important?" Korsak raised his index finger and explained that the higher the rating, the more various benefits. For example, incarnation time, rank increase, and the chance of summoning increases, of course. The protagonist said, "Aha!" The next second, the system reported the entrance to the second floor of the Korean Black Tower. They found themselves behind the barrier and the system added, "Second mission, defeat 10 nimble fat larvae." The MC looked at the creatures in surprise and said, "Troublesome second floor larvae that scurry everywhere." He thoughtfully asked, "What should they do on the second floor?" Korsak looked at him and asked, "Do it? Who? There won't even be time for this, and they'll be done in 3 minutes." With these words, he smiled and showed him 3 fingers, then ran forward, drawing his weapon, and shouted that he would simply sort it out and take him home. The protagonist shouted after him, "How about some chicken wings?" He shouted back that he was grateful, and then Korsak began to deal with the larvae. The protagonist thought, "This is crazy. This is just insane." The system reported that he had completed the second floor mission. His level had increased. The reward was 200 grams of magic stone. Notification: he had received an S+ conquest rating for the second floor of the Black Tower of Korea. The reward for conquering S++ was a platinum badge. He thought, S++ again? Could it really be that easy? It was almost too fast. He could go there and back, even with his morning job. After some time, they returned to the tower. The system reported that the third floor mission was to defeat 10 ice fat larvae. Korsak smiled, walked forward, and said that he had landed late. After some time, the system reported the third floor mission had been completed. The fourth and fifth floors missions had also been completed. And after some time, MC was surprised to notice that the system reported that he was being granted a special privilege for accumulating 5 platinum badges. He thought in surprise, a privilege. A privilege is a boost to the awakened trait. Thanks to the privilege effect, the limit on simultaneous summons is increased to 2. Then he looked at his stats and thought, 2 simultaneous summons, so he can take another one with him? Although even one Korsak is already destroying everyone. A reward for reaching rank S++. This is simply insane. This could drag on for a long time. It will be much safer this way. Random summon cooldown, wait another 20 days. They will proceed cautiously until then. Then, in 20 days, the 3 of them. No, while he is enjoying the easy life, the 2 of them will continue to fight their way through with rank S++. Tomorrow, straight to conquer the 6th floor again, they will continue to climb. Hanam-dong, Seoul, Republic of Korea. Office of Awakened Affairs of Korea. Jong Kwang-il sat on the sofa and wondered when the bell would ring today. In the morning? Or in the evening? Maybe late at night? Then Lee Min-ah leaned over and asked, "He's thinking about the notification, right?" The captain of the Awakened Affairs Bureau cried out in fear and said, "Department Chief, he told her to get rid of the habit of scaring people." And the Department Chief of the Awakened Affairs Bureau looked at him silently. Then Kyung-soo asked, "Well, has there been a new notification?" The worker confirmed it. The 6th floor of the Black Tower of Korea has been cleared with an S++ rank. He thought, here we go again. The global Black Tower notifications have been coming one after another lately, and the content is nothing other than news of S++ rank clearance. Since floors 1 through 5 were cleared in order, it's definitely the same person. Without a doubt, someone with unprecedented talent. If it's the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, if each floor below is cleared with an S++ rank, then what if they're cleared with an S++ rank? The next second, Park Kyung-soo slammed his hand on the table and said that they both knew. But until now, Korea's best record was A rank. He was the director of the Awakened Affairs Bureau. He added that the fact that there was a higher rank, that clearing S rank triggered a global alert, had only just come to light. In the international community, changing citizenship by players is now commonplace. Even kidnappings occur secretly. Before they lose them to another country, they must find this player immediately. They must closely monitor all newly registered players. 2 days later, MC said, Mr. Corsac, today is the 8th floor, right? He wiped the foam from his face and smiling replied, yes sir. The protagonist thought, clearing 1 floor a day without any stress. Well, up until the 10th floor, that's the stage when you get rid of the rookie label and everything goes smoothly. Sometime later, they were walking through the forest and the system announced the 8th floor's mission. Defeat 10 red-spiked frog warriors. The monsters began jumping on them, extending their long tongues. The next second, Corsac easily slashed through each creature. The system then announced that he had completed the 8th floor's mission and his level had increased. The reward was 800 grams of magic stone, and the bonus was 5 tower healing potions. A notification was also given. He had received an S++ conquest rating for the 8th floor of the Black Tower of Korea. The reward for S++ conquest was a platinum badge. Sometime later, they returned to the apartment. Corsac bowed and joyfully shouted, great job today. The protagonist replied that he does nothing every day. He said that the hardest part is just entering the tower. The protagonist added, but thanks to him, they always climb easily. He replied, don't relax. Starting from the second half of the 10th floor, it won't be easy. Then the protagonist smiled and clapping his hands, thought, anyway, today isn't another 3-minute cleanup. Maybe I should give Corsac something for his efforts. Then he took out his wallet and said that there was still plenty of time in the real world, so he should go and have some fun before returning. He could eat something delicious, just don't cause any trouble. But suddenly Corsac put his hands in front of him and shouted, no! The MC was surprised, why not? He replied that he couldn't leave the summoner Ju Hyuk. He'd just watched TV at home, and he thought in surprise, doesn't complete obedience extend to that? Then he asked, then they'll order a crust? Corsac smiled and shouted that it sounded great. After that, he sat down in front of the TV and said that then he'll order something delicious. Oh yeah, not that spicy, honey cheesy, creamy sweet thing, right? MC thought he'd take a look at the rewards. The new reward was a tower healing potion. He could give it to Mr. Corsac. What to do with those magic stones? He already had 36 kilograms in his inventory. Selling it would bring him about 1.8 million won. He thought he should figure out how to cash it in. It was the 10th day of conquering the Black Tower, and the 10th floor challenge was coming soon. The protagonist put on his sweater and said that at first he'd thought he'd just try the tower, but he was diligently climbing 1 floor a day. Yesterday's 9th floor, the man eating flower from the jungle, had also been easy. It seemed like completing a floor was a given, and the reward was a bonus. How sweet. No, how reliable. He'd already forgotten he was a mad killer who'd killed 3 people. Then the protagonist announced the assigned summoner, Corsac. Corsac's satisfaction rating was set to 5. Thanks to accumulating constant top ratings, Corsac's time in the real world was extended by 1 hour. The protagonist thought in surprise the top rating was worth it. Then Corsac, making a heart with his hands, smiled and said he was grateful. Now he could help him for an hour longer. The protagonist said he looked forward to further cooperation. He replied that he simply had to trust him. After some time, the system announced entrance to the 10th floor of the Republic of Korea's Black Tower. Physical abilities had been enhanced according to his level. Stats and combat skills were available for use. They began to emerge from the barrier, and the protagonist thought that closer to the 10th floor, he was really starting to feel it. A recalibration of physical abilities inside the tower. An overwhelming mysterious mana felt in the pit of his stomach. Yes, had he, Ju Hyuk, really become an untamable wild Mustang now? Then he put his hand on Corsac's shoulder and said that from now on he would also be helping, but he turned around and objected anxiously. No, you can't. If Ju Hyuk the summoner gets even a single scratch, he'll have to smash his head on the ground. And he replied that he shouldn't worry. He's a wild Mustang after all. Corsac said that his encouragement and praise were enough for him, the summoner. MC replied, no, this time they definitely have to do it together. The next second, he looked away in fear, noticing a huge praying mantis. He wondered if this was a 10th floor monster? How did other players ever catch something like this? He said, well, sending 2 people to catch simple insects, that somehow hurts human pride. Corsac asked thoughtfully, there's nothing here that would hurt pride. He said, no, this is really hurting his pride. So Corsac, go. The next second, the mantis pointed its sharp paws at Corsac, but he dodged and followed up the paw, then leaped further and delivered multiple slashing attacks. The very next second, the system reported the completion of the 10th floor mission. The reward was 1 kilogram of magic stone, and there's also a notification. He received an S++ conquest rating for the 10th floor of the Black Tower of Korea. The reward for conquest of S++ was a platinum badge. Then Corsac tossed a few daggers and shouted, mission accomplished. The system announced that he could challenge on the 11th floor. Exit from the Black Tower of the Republic of Korea. After some time, the protagonist thought, 1 more kilogram of magic stones, and that makes 5.5 kilograms. And since he had already received the privilege for 5 platinum badges, the system reported that the privilege is granted upon accumulating 10 platinum badges. He thought, so it's decided. What kind of privilege is this? The system window said it was a privilege. He can copy 1 skill from a summoned creature. The list was Blade Burst, Shock Rift, Hidden Ambush, Poison Dagger, Shadow Step, Disorientation, Stealth Invisibility, and Polymorph. He must select the desired skill. He looked at it and asked, skill copying? Then Corsac looked at him and raising his index finger said, summoner, no questions asked, it's Shadow Step. The main character was surprised and he asked, skill copying has appeared. right? He shouldn't ask or think. He should take shadow step. He asked, but why? He replied that it was convenient for escape. Even if something happened to him, he could disappear quickly and unnoticed. The protagonist pursed his lip and thought, escape? Who does he take him for? Does he look like someone who would run for his life? The system reported that he had acquired the skill, Shadow Step. Shadow Step was registered in the status window. He thought that even in combat, fast footwork was extremely important. Isn't it said that footwork is the same as combat? Does this really work in the world? He started trying out the Shadow Step and the distance closing technique. After a while, he collapsed on the floor from exhaustion and said, if summoning works, then this should work. No logic. None. Corsac sat next to him and said he didn't know what he was talking about, but he was absolutely right. On the 11th day of conquering the tower, MC answered the phone. Yes, the call center of the Awakened Affairs Department. The protagonist said his name was Ju Hyuk. He had awakened, so he was calling. Then a voice came from the phone. I see. They were congratulating him. Player? He must be confused. Could government assistants visit his home? He answered, yes. The address. The employee said they were grateful for his cooperation. They would come as soon as possible. An ordinary citizen, Ju Hyuk, contacted the Awakened Affairs Department to sell magic stones, the boldest decision of his 25-year life. After a while, Mina got into the car next to Kwang Il. He looked at her and said, she's here, the department head. How is the awakened one who contacted them from Daegu yesterday? She said it looks like it's not the S-rank record holder this time. He asked, damn it, will he even show up? And then she said they received another awakening request today. Will he go check it out? He said, yes. For now, he'll have to run as far as his legs can carry him. Let's go. If it's the right player, they must bring him to the elite group, even if they have to shell out the best perks the department can offer. After a while, the protagonist was cleaning. After that, he heard a voice from behind the door. Hello, is anyone home? They're from the Awakened One's Affairs Department. He thought, they're here. Then he walked up to the door and said, yes, he'll open it now. He scratched the back of his head, then bowed and said, hello, it's a bit crowded in here, but please, they should pass. The worker took a few steps forward and said, nice to meet you. He's team leader Kwang Il from the Awakened Affairs Department. He then pointed to Min Ah and added, this is department head Min Ah. She's also a player, so he shouldn't be shy about asking whatever he wants. The protagonist thought, a woman too? This made him even more nervous. Then Min Ah bowed and apologized, and he said, I see, he's Ju Hyuk. The next second, Min Ah approached his face, and he instantly blushed with embarrassment, thinking it was too close. She looked at him and asked, it's him, right? S+. The protagonist abruptly backed away, shouting in surprise, what? He thought, what? Do they have some kind of secret way to identify awakened people that he doesn't know about? Okay, I should deny everything and act natural. Then he raised his hand and said that he probably heard about it, but it wasn't him. He started laughing awkwardly, and then Min Ah thought, stop, what was that look? He's lying. Then Kwang Il waved his hand, but she managed to lean over and he shouted, Miss Min Ah, he already asked not to interrogate. She replied, yes sir. Then Kwang Il apologized for his tactlessness. Player Ju Hyuk. He replied, no problem. He thought they were just checking. After some time, the character said that he was Tabby, the mascot of the Korean Black Tower. He offered to learn more about the tower. 1, 2, 3 jump, and blue, black, and ominous, it towers over the tallest building on Earth, the Black Tower. 20 years ago, it appeared overnight all over the world. Every country sent scientists, military research, but no one could get close to it, as if an invisible wall blocked the way. So what is this tower? The answer to this question appeared along with the players. The tower works like a game where you need to go through floor after floor. On the outside, players are ordinary people, but on the inside, they gain immense power and skill. Rewards allow them to upgrade their equipment and even support the global economy. But what if no one climbs? Good question. The system reported, attention, low progress on the Black Tower in an unknown country. Attention, the countdown to the tower's destruction has begun. Attention, completing the next floor is being counted down. The talisman said that if a new floor isn't conquered within 6 months, the countdown begins and the tower collapses. That's how Mumbai disappeared 3 years ago. And how are things going there? Each country has between 1 and 3 towers. They're lucky. Korea has only 1. They estimate there are between 5 and 10,000 players in the country. Approximately 0.1 to 0.2% of the population. Not that many, right? But they're steadily moving forward. Korea's record is 65 floors, just one step behind the US with its 66 floors. So he shouldn't worry, because they're protected by modern heroes. Just as humanity once discovered new continents, they are now exploring towers. Attention, newly awakened. They are the hope of humanity. Why not register as an official player today? They shall become heroes. Then Kwang Il closed the laptop and said that this also concluded the mandatory briefing. The protagonist thought, well, what bureaucracy? Then the worker added, now a few verification questions. Sir, he really is awakened, right? MC poured the magic stones onto the table and said, yes, he entered the tower, even went through some things. He replied that this simplifies matters. What floor did he reach? He answered, the 10th. The workers looked at each other and thought, the 10th floor. That's the same floor where the S++ record was. Min Ah thought, could it really be him? Then he asked, player Ju Hyuk, had he heard about the recent global alert? He thought he should act naturally. And then he asked, about the S++ record? Yeah, I heard. Whoever did it was a monster. He started laughing awkwardly, but Kwang Il said, "Don't be so nervous." He wondered if he was really nervous or just playing with him. Definitely suspicious. Then he offered to let him explain the contract details. They divide players into two groups, elite and regular. Regular players set their own schedules, moving up freely like freelancers. The elite players work closely with management. They're required to storm the high floors, but they receive funding, equipment, and security, because outside the tower, the players are just regular people. And of course, the elite players have salaries. The protagonist had already stopped listening to him and thought that if they found out he was that S++, he'd be finished. He imagined himself surrounded by paparazzi, shouting, "Sir, just one more thing. Rumor has it he's a loner. Is it true he has no friends?" The cameras were closing in on him from all sides. He thought he hated being the center of attention. Meanwhile, Kwang Il added that if he were in the elite group, he'd have to wear a government-issued base and a camera to record his runs. The protagonist apologized. Being a regular would be fine. Kwang Il looked at him in surprise and asked, "Sorry?" He replied that he didn't want to be in the elite group. He said, "But the perks." He said, frankly, he didn't have much talent, and it was scary whether he even knew. He smiled awkwardly and scratched his head, adding that he'd simply stop on a safe floor and collect his rewards. That would be enough. Kwang Il asked him to think about it, and he replied, "No need." He'd made up his mind. Minna thought, another red herring. Many prefer to farm mid-level floors for easy loot, but no one says it so openly. It's pathetic. Such a coward has no place in the elite. Determination, that's the true requirement. Then Kwang Il said that they respected his decision, player. The protagonist thanked him, and he asked if he couldn't enter the tower right now. This was the last stage of the verification. He said of course. Kwang Il said that at the same time he could make a quick run so as not to lose entry. He said, exactly. He thought they're still checking. They want to see if he's an S++ rank player. Then he said, okay, he'll make the run, but it will take about 2 hours. Minna replied, no problem, he shouldn't rush, no pressure, they'll wait. After that, the MC stood up, looked at the guests, and told them not to rush. There was a TV, drinks in the fridge. He left. Then he disappeared, and Kwang Il said, so he really is awakened. What will she say? Minna said she didn't know about talent. He seemed timid. He seemed a bit reserved. He probably wouldn't go to the 11th floor. He asked why she thought so. She replied that she'd been there herself. The 11th floor tests fear. He asked what about that tunnel with the centipedes. She replied that it wasn't that difficult, but it was terrifying to the point of shivers. He needed to kill 100 of those creatures. Someone like him would panic and immediately run to the safe zone. Then he folded his arms and said that she hadn't made a single mistake yet. He would call the director and say that this was another dead end. Meanwhile, the protagonist summoned Korsak. He appeared and thanked him again for summoning him, sir. Then the system announced the 11th floor's mission. Destroy 100 tunnel centipedes. Time limit, 3 hours. Progress, 0 out of 100 kills. Failure means death. The MC asked with disgust, centipedes? Why those in particular? And a whole 100. And Korsak smiled and said that he would finish in 5 minutes, and he would beat at least 100 or more. The protagonist said, no. This time slowly and calmly, no S++. Korsak said that he understood. Today they would play carefully. The protagonist asked, did he understand? They didn't just ask him to come in, they needed proof that he was not that S+ monster. And Korsak gave him a thumbs up, and smiling replied, aha! He understood what he was getting at. And the protagonist smiled and thought that he would only hide the record by running a disputable race. He would definitely escape the suspicion of the S+ hunters. Meanwhile, Korsak began to cut up the centipedes. The MC thought, maybe too slowly? Then he shouted, slower, he mustn't rush. Korsak shouted that he obeyed, sir. He returned to the fight, and the protagonist thought, great, perfect rhythm. Then he was surprised to notice the head of a huge centipede beneath him. He thought, wait, what the hell? He screamed loudly and thought he should run, but his body wouldn't listen. The centipede started heading towards him, and the next second, Korsak looked away. Noticing this, rushed towards him, shouting at him to leave this to him. He cut all the monsters and shouted, these vile creatures dared touch him? He made a few more cuts, and the protagonist said that he waited. Slow down, too fast. That's an order, Korsak. He must hold back. And he replied that he can't, sir. His safety comes first. And the main character thought that if he gets so carried away again then the system reported, an alert. The 11th floor of the Korean Black Tower has been completed. Rank S++, reward, 1 platinum badge. They started to walk back, and the protagonist said, damn it all. The system reported that the 12th floor was unlocked, the exit from the Korean Black Tower. Meanwhile, Minna, leaning her back against the wall, said exactly 5 minutes. He should be back any minute. Then a system window appeared in front of them, and Kwang Il looked at his colleague in surprise and asked, Miss? The system window said, notification, 11th floor of the Korean Black Tower cleared, rank S++. MC appeared next. Minna said, not possible. Kwang Il asked, what just happened? She said that player Juhyuk had just exited the tower, and at that exact same second, a rank notification appeared. At that moment, the protagonist sighed and said that he really didn't want to resort to this, but he pointed his hand forward and said that he was afraid that now he would have to silence them. Korsak stood behind him, ready to strike. He shouted, Mr. Korsak, he must tie them up immediately. Before he could finish speaking, Korsak decapitated both men with one movement. The protagonist screamed in fear. Who said anything about cutting off heads? Kwang Il asked. Player Juhyuk? Minna asked the same thing. He shouted that he apologized. protagonist. He apologized again and again. The next second, Minna said that she apologized, and Kwang-il looked at him with interest and asked, "Player Ju-hyuk, is he okay?" He suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. The protagonist apologized again in fear, and then thought that his paranoia was catching up. Then he coughed awkwardly and said that he was fine. Kwang-il said that in that case, he would allow him to repeat. Their elite group needs his talent. Player Ju-hyuk, he replied, "Perhaps this is some kind of misunderstanding?" Apparently, it coincided with the time another player cleared the 11th floor. Wow, how is that even possible? Amazing. He said it, but the coincidence is too perfect. The protagonist replied, "No, it's definitely a coincidence." He apologizes. His tone caught his attention. In short, it definitely wasn't him. He asked, "Is it really not him?" He replied, "Yeah, I mean, yes." Then Kwang-il sighed, handed over the documents and said, "I see." The MC smiled awkwardly and said, "He said so." Kwang-il added, "In that case, since they've already confirmed his awakening, they've prepared a contract." After that, the protagonist took the documents and said in surprise, "This is an elite contract." He'd definitely only asked for a regular contract. And Kwang-il smiled and raised his index finger, saying, "No, this is on a completely different level than ordinary cases, so to speak. A one-of-a-kind contract in the industry, also known as an ultra-elite contract, a salary of 12 billion won plus real estate, VIP protocol, and full security, and immunity to boot." The protagonist thought, "Isn't that practically becoming an outlaw? Almost like royalty." Kwang-il added that only one player currently enjoys such privileges, Yu Chol-min, Korea's top player. He should take a look. This is everything the state has to offer. MC thought it was good to know, but nevertheless, he said no. Unless it's a regular contract, he won't be a player. The worker was surprised why he was so adamant. He replied that he hated attracting attention. Attention is a burden, and a burden is called stress, and how heavy it is on his heart. Kwang-il thought, in short, he's a big introvert. It's best to back off for now. He said, "I understand." Then they'll draw up a standard contract. After that, they shook hands, and the protagonist thought anyone would be shocked to see this. They say, why not just sign an elite contract, get the perks and climb up? But an elite contract comes with as much responsibility as it does benefits. If you want to stop clearing the upper floors, you can't, because the elite group was assembled precisely to clear the upper floors. He refuses such a burden. He is satisfied with living a little more comfortably than before. After some time, managing the awakened, Kyung-soo was sitting at the table and said, "Captain Kwang-il, this is completely different from what was said in the report. Didn't they say on the phone that he is a timid player with no desire to climb?" He stood in front of him and answered, "That's right." He asked, "Did such a person achieve rank S++? He answered, "That's right." Kyung-soo added that he can't understand it, and Kwang-il said, "It seems he has a unique character. He is a rare, typical, ordinary person." He asked, "Maybe they got the wrong person?" And then, Minna said that it was impossible. Such a coincidence cannot be accidental. Then Kyung-soo clenched his fists and protested. So what difference did it make whether he was timid or not? This is an unparalleled talent. They must drag him into the elite group at any cost. The employee replied that he understood. "Director, he will be in the elite squad." Meanwhile, the protagonist screamed. He said categorically not. He thought he would pretend to be really angry. But this, what is this? They were caught. Korsak stood opposite him, bowing his head, asking for forgiveness. The protagonist thought, being so angry is exhausting. He shouted that if he pulled this again, nothing will come of it. Immediate recall. He answered, "Yes, sir." After some time, the system reported the entrance to the Black Tower of Korea, 12th floor. The mission of the 12th floor is to defeat 20 leaf spear weasels. Time limit is 3 hours. Completion conditions: icy coffee weasels, 0 out of 20. Failure conditions: death and abandonment of the mission. The protagonist, fully clothed, walked forward and said, very gently, "Be sure to go slowly." Korsak stood in front of him and shouted, "Yes, sir." The MC smiled, watched him go, and thought, good. He responded cheerfully, thinking he could be trusted this time. If he cleared the 12th floor at his usual pace, the controls would lose their appeal. But it was cold. He had prepared himself, but it was colder here than he thought. He needed to endure it a little. Then Korsak turned around and said, "Summoner Ju-hyuk," and he turned pale. "Is he okay?" He replied, "Yes, it's bearable." He then shouted that he would finish as quickly as possible and escort him somewhere warm. The protagonist said, "No, he's fine, so take it slow." Before he could finish, Korsak resolutely ran forward and began attacking the monsters, shouting, "If this continues, he'll catch a cold. A cold is an incurable disease. Summoner Ju-hyuk's life is in danger." And the protagonist said, "Complete submission." He'd already said it. The next second, the system sent a notification. He'd received an S++ rank for clearing the 12th floor of the Black Tower in Korea. The reward was a platinum badge for achieving an S++ rank. Sometime later, Kyung-soo Kwang-il called the protagonist and shouted, "Player Ju-hyuk, did he just clear the 12th floor?" He replied, "Yes, but the 13th floor will probably be difficult." Meanwhile, Korsak awkwardly scratched the back of his head and sighed, "It's warm now. Please, he should relax. He was just going to watch TV." Before he could approach the TV, the protagonist pointed his hand at him and said, "Call him back." He was even thinking of watching TV. There's no future for the disobedient. Sometime later, the Black Tower, 13th floor. MC and Korsak looked at the upcoming trials, and he said, "The mission is to get through a corridor full of traps." Korsak took the protagonist by the waist and said, "That's it, there's nothing else to do. Too many variables. The summoner Ju-hyuk could get hurt." The protagonist told him to wait, but Korsak resolutely ran forward, holding the protagonist under his arm, and shouted, Traps, they're moving fast. After some time, the system reported a notification. He received an S++ rank for clearing the 13th floor of the Black Tower Korea. Sometime later, the Black Tower, 14th floor. Corsac dealt with monsters and shouted, the sound wave from the giant bat's area of effect attack will also hit the summoner Ju Hyuk. He'll deal with it first. The protagonist watched silently, and then the system reported the 14th floor had been cleared. He thought, well, whatever will be. After a while, he looked at the transaction history and said, Stone revenue, 2.75 million won. Player support, 2 million. Stone rewards from the 11th to the 14th floors, 5 kilograms if you add 2.5 million won. He smiled and thought he'd earned more than 7 million won in 14 days. If so, will he reach the 20th floor without a problem? The stones alone weigh at least 2 kilograms, so if you sell through the management, that's 1 million won per day. Without commission and taxes, 1 million won daily. A life with a salary of 30 million won a month awaits him. The next day, the system reported that Corsac had been summoned. He knelt down and shouted that he listened and obeyed. To give him a perfect score for disobeying orders and starting a riot was touching. The protagonist held out his hands and told him to clear the area calmly from the 15th floor onward. He wouldn't force him to do it slowly. Corsac looked up at him in surprise and asked, is that okay? The protagonist put his hand to his face and said that management had already figured it out anyway. He thought besides, if he got an S++ on the 15th floor, he'd have 15 points. There was a high chance of getting a new privilege. He smiled and thought that he was surprisingly becoming greedy, but the more privileges, the safer. Then he pointed his fist forward and shouted, forward, Mr. Corsac. And he shouted, yes, sir. After some time, the system reported the entrance to the Black Tower of Korea, 15th floor mission. 20 goblin workers. MC hid behind a tree and peeking around the corner thought, this is the first time humanoid monsters have appeared. They have intelligence, albeit low. From now on, clearing them becomes problematic, even with information. And Corsac stood behind a nearby tree and whispered that if even one escaped, he would bring the rest. Goblins are cunning creatures, so he should hide better. He smiled and said that he would take them out in one fell swoop and return. The next second, he walked forward, and the protagonist thought, now that's stealth skill. He watched the monsters' heads fly off and thought, insanity, they die without even noticing. After some time, the system reported the mission on the 15th floor was successful. Level up, reward, 1.5 kilograms of magic stones, 5 exclusive healing potions. He received an S++ rank and also a platinum badge for his rank record. He will be able to begin the 16th floor mission, exiting the tower. Then he and Corsac returned to the apartment, and then the protagonist extended his right hand forward and called up his inventory. He thought, 15 platinum badges in total. Naturally, this time too, the system announced a privilege for accumulating 15 platinum badges. He thought, yes, that's it. 5 badges yielded a trait enhancement, 10 a skill copy. What will happen this time? Then the system announced the privilege. An energy shield set item was sent to his exclusive tower inventory. The protagonist thought, an energy shield? He put a special bracelet on his arm, and the system announced the effect and limitations. He began to cover himself with a shield and thought, wow, this is practically full body armor. Besides, there's no tower exclusive mark this time then. He smiled, clenching his fist, and said, energy shield. He thought, so he can use the shield in real life too. If he sells this on the market, how much will he get? 2 billion won? 3 billion? Maybe he should just sell it and give up climbing the tower? No, if he climbs higher, the rewards will be even better. Then he smiled, looking at Corsac, and said, is an immediate clear on the 16th floor possible? Corsac turned to him, holding a chicken leg in his hand, and said that clearing is definitely possible, but they need to be careful. He can't guarantee S++. MC was surprised, right? He thought, then what should he do? Maybe sell this bracelet? After a while, Kyung-soo was sitting at his desk and said, a global alert about a clearing record at S++. How long has it been since it stopped? Min-ah said that today is exactly the 15th day. Kwang-il added that it looks like he's stuck on the 15th floor. Then Kyung-soo, enraged, slammed his fist on the table and, gritting his teeth, said, to bestow such a talent on the most fearful player of them all. Where is he? Kwang-il added that even though the similarities sharply increased from the 16th floor, player Ju-hyuk couldn't just stay. They have to wait a little longer. The player goes to the Awakened Affairs office. He says he wants to use the player shop. Kyung-soo was surprised. The player shop? No way. He was replaying the 15th floor to save up to buy items? Kwang-il replied that it seemed so. When they visited his house to confirm his awakenings, he didn't have any equipment. Then Kyung-soo shouted at him, what a fool. He almost condemned the main player without knowing it. When Ju-hyuk arrives, they should provide him with any items for next to nothing. 15 days ago, Corsac shouted in surprise. What did he say? The protagonist lifted his shirt and told him to stab him. Corsac looked at him in surprise, then grabbed his head and was indignant. Why is he doing this to him? If he doesn't like him, he should just beat him to death. And the protagonist said that he just wants to check if the energy shield works. He thought that he wasn't asking to kill him. Just a little poke, what's all the noise? Then Corsac started shaking his head in different directions and said that he didn't hear anything. He can't hear him. He shouted, oh my god, how infuriating. Then he grabbed his hand with the sword and stabbed it into his stomach. He said that he will deal with everything himself. Corsac looked at him, perplexed, and then the protagonist began pouring liquid on his stomach and shouted, damn, he got stabbed and he didn't didn't turn on his shield, Korsak screamed. Juhyuk's summoner got stabbed. He'll cut it off. With these words, he pointed his sword at the trembling hand, then grabbed the protagonist by the shoulders and shouted that he should never do such a thing again. He replied that he understood, so he should go and finish the hunt. He said yes. After that, he returned to the fight. An MC, watching him from the side, thought that Korsak's hunt ends in 10 minutes at most. He should at least practice his skills in his free time. Then he said, "Step into the shadows." He moved forward and then turned slightly and thought, so that's what it feels like. I understand why Korsak told him to learn this first. He can move completely freely. Then he made a few more dashes and stopped in surprise, noticing a goblin in the bushes, who looked at him with a furious gaze. He thought, a goblin? He was hiding from Korsak? The next second, the goblin ran at him, baring its sharp teeth, and the protagonist screamed in fear. Shield! He extended his hand covered with a shield in front of him, and pushing the goblin away, screamed, Goosebumps! The next second, Korsak ran up and swinging his sword, cut the monster in two. He smiled and said, nice pass. He must have been playing soccer. Then he screamed in surprise, Summoner Juhyuk. He pushed off the tree and flew forward. He flew up to him and screamed, is he okay? He started examining him from all sides and screamed, no, did he fight a goblin? What was he thinking? He's not hurt. And the MC replied that he was completely fine. And then Korsak got angry and screamed that he'd told him many times he shouldn't be too brave, Summoner. And the protagonist replied, okay, he'll be careful. Okay, 15th floor in 2 weeks. He'd gotten a little used to the skill. The magic stones he'd accumulated over that time totaled 22.5 kilograms. The market value was a whopping 25 million won. After a while, Kwang-il answered the phone and said, Player Juhyuk. He was grateful for the call. The protagonist said, hello. Could he visit the player shop right now? He replied, of course. He'll send someone to his house immediately. He replied, no, he'd get there himself. He asked him not to be shy. It was a privilege all regular players received. He replied, then they'll wait. After a while, the protagonist exited the limo. Kwang-il came out to greet him and smiling, said it had been a while since they'd seen each other. He bowed, gesturing toward the entrance, and added that they sincerely welcomed him to the management office. The protagonist greeted him back and thought, this sounds like VIP treatment, no matter how you look at it. Then Kwang-il invited them inside. A few minutes later, he placed his hand on the scanner, and the system reported that Juhyuk's blood vessel data had been successfully registered. Kwang-il said that from now on, he could come over any time without calling. Anything I can suggest? The protagonist stepped forward and, smiling awkwardly, said, no, thank you. He'll just take a look around quietly. Then he moved his hand forward, and the automatic doors in front of him opened. The system announced, welcome to the player store. He walked forward and thought, so this is it, an exclusive store for players. The atmosphere is superb. But why doesn't he see a single customer? He started looking at the items and thought, maybe because the items are expensive. Well, first, he'll test the magic stones. After that, the employee said that the market starts at 11.25 million won. It will be credited to his account within 3 days, fellow player. He asked if he could use it right here. He replied, of course, immediate use is allowed. The protagonist thought he'd quickly buy everything and go home. Meanwhile, Kyung-soo looked at Kwang-il and asked, well, has player Juhyuk started shopping yet? He replied, yes, he's looking around now, and he told the other players that the store is closed today. He asked, what about the prices? He replied that he had instructed the staff to sell it at a 90% discount. Since he was timid, he might feel obligated and refuse it if he gave it away for free. Kyung-soo said, good job. After some time, the protagonist picked up an adamantite mace for 2 million won and basilisk skin boots for 3 million won. He looked at the weapons and said, but he'd heard that prices for ordinary items start at 20 to 30 million won. And the fact that the department head himself came to greet him. No matter how he thought about it, it seemed like he was getting special attention. Damn, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's so annoying. He thought about it, but the boots are beautiful. Assembling armor from boots alone, it's all thanks to the universal defense, the energy shield, and all thanks to the privileges. He decided not to be greedy when he began climbing the tower. But this privilege is a real temptress. This makes him greedy. The next day, the system reported that Korsak had been summoned. Korsak appeared and shouted that he wished him health. Summoner Juhyuk. It was an honor to be summoned today. Will they be doing the repeating mission of the 8th floor again? MC waved and said that it wasn't so. They would go up to the 16th floor. The summoning cooldown ended. Then Korsak smiled and shouted that they would summon someone else. After that, the protagonist began casting made-up spells and mentally begged for it to work. He concentrated energy in his hands and shouted, random summon. The next second, the room lit up. An MC looked in surprise at the figure that appeared and said, wait a second. Suddenly, a huge head crashed through the ceiling. He wondered what had even summoned it. Another whole month of waiting. The next second, the outline of the summoned person's body became brighter, and the protagonist wondered, is he a human or a monster? The next second, Korsak leaped forward, attacking feet first, and shouted, he's an idiot. He attacked the summoned man head-on, screaming, why him of all people? Whose life did he come to ruin? He must die. I wish he would die. What's with that look? He shouldn't look at him, you idiot. Watching this, the protagonist wondered, are they familiar? Then the summoned man said, it doesn't hurt, it tickles. Korsak pulled out his weapon and said, I'm going to chop his head off. Let's see how ticklish it is. He'd even tie a bow on it. He charged, but the next second MC stood between them, arms outstretched, and shouted, "Enough!" One broken ceiling was more than enough. Corsac raised his hand and shouted, "Aha!" Then the protagonist asked him to step aside for a minute. He wanted to talk to their new guest. He replied that it wasn't necessary, a notorious idiot who gets eaten alive. He probably didn't even know the 3 principles of the summoned. And the summoned said he knew the 3 principles. He'd studied everything. Corsac told him to name them, and he started counting on his fingers and said, "First, listen to the summoner's wish, absolutely and unquestioningly. Second, the summoner's life is more valuable than his command. That's the third." Before he could finish speaking, Corsac pointed his finger at him and shouted, "Does he see? He summoned a fool. It's better to kill him so he can't be summoned for 100 days. How did the protagonist think such a rule existed? Then a system window appeared in front of him, displaying the stats of a summoned stupid barbarian, the meat shield of the Great Plains tribe. MC started looking through the stats and thought, rank R? That's the lowest rank he could summon. A bit disappointing. Maybe he should wait a month and try again? Then he looked at the summoned one and asked what his name was. He replied that he didn't know. He'd forgotten. He asked if he knew why he was here. He replied in the negative. He asked what about the tower. He replied that he didn't know and didn't remember. The protagonist thought, damn, this is terrible. He'll probably just read the detailed description. The next second, he began to fall into another dimension and thought, just like with Corsac, he's being sucked into his memories. Finding himself on the plane, he wondered where he was. He noticed the summoned one standing happily surrounded by butterflies and said, "Beautiful butterflies." The system reported a barbarian warrior from the Great Plains tribe, a pure being who found happiness in simply being one with nature. However, despite his purity, his physical abilities were top-notch, and yet he was too stupid. At some point, Axius approached him, smiled, and said, "Wow, he's huge, just like they say. His name is Axius, and his?" He replied that he didn't know, he'd forgotten. So much so, in fact, that he couldn't even remember his own name. Deceived by a false hero, the barbarian warrior was used as a human shield in the battle against the archdemon Hydra. His mighty body withstood the Hydra's breath, and now he was tearing off its heads one by one, unaware that his own skin was melting. All for the sole purpose of protecting his comrades. In the end, he met his death, dissolved by the accumulated acidic breath under the ridicule of his comrades. They continued to laugh and say, "What an idiot." They are grateful. Thanks to him, they won easily. MC looked at his huge skeleton and thought, so that's why they call him a human shield. It's unfair. He bit his lip and thought, so what if he's a bit stupid? He extended his hand to him and said he was glad to welcome him. He proposed that they conquer the tower together. First, they would give him a name. Did he prefer barbarian or meat shield? Then he shook the summoned one's finger, and he replied that he didn't know. The protagonist told him to just choose. He answered, meat shield. Then the protagonist gave himself a thumbs up and told him not to worry, his dear meat shield. He would make him happy. Does he trust him? He replied that meat shield trusted the summoner. It does what he says. Then the protagonist turned around and said, so, Mr. Corsac, from now on they are comrades. Comrade, they must work, communicate, okay? In response, he was indignant. What? And then he smiled and said, my God, since he says so. Now he sees that he's a reliable human shield. He will train him well and make someone worthy of him. MC raised his hand up and joyfully shouted, excellent. Then they should immediately proceed to the 16th floor. He answered, yes. Then he walked up to Meat Shield and shouted, is he not going to answer? With these words, he kicked him in the leg, and Meat Shield answered, yes. Corsac was indignant. He should not repeat after him. Idiot. The protagonist thought an inept player, a mad killer, and a barbarian named Meat Shield. A dream team. After a while, the system reported entering the 16th floor of the Black Tower. Physical abilities were enhanced according to his level. Traits and combat skills were now available. MC thought, they have to do this. The mission for the 16th floor was to eliminate 30 goblin scouts. Then Corsac walked forward and said, Summoner Ju-hyuk, please activate your energy shield. He must be ready to use Shadow Step at any time. He walked behind him and replied that he understood. At that moment, goblins hid behind the trees to either side of them, and Corsac added that they were firing poison darts. So, it was unknown when they would appear. The next second, one of the goblins pointed a pipe directly at the protagonist, blew out a dart that flew forward at a rapid pace. But before it could reach its target, Corsac grabbed it with a sharp movement and shouted, ambush! At that moment, goblins leaped at them from all sides, and the protagonist ran to hide behind a rock. Corsac began to block the darts and shouted that he would block them for him. The protagonist hid behind a rock and, gritting his teeth, thought they had been waiting for them. It looked like there were far more than 50 of them here. Then he shouted, Meat Shield. He must be standing before him. The summoned one's eyes lit up. His body was covered in energy. He spread his arms to the sides and then shouted loudly. Corsac turned around in surprise, noticing a powerful wave of energy emanating from Meat Shield. He was also blown away. MC peeked out from behind a huge rock and thought, this is crazy. Size matters. Just the difference in physics causes so much damage. After that, the goblins aimed their darts at Meat Shield. He said, it didn't hurt, it tickled. He heard the order to kill everyone. He pushed forward, scattering every goblin in his path. The protagonist's mouth dropped open in surprise and thought, Is this barbarian warrior only an R rank? Judging by combat power alone, he's an SR. No, maybe even. No way, the only reason he's an R rank is because he's stupid. After a while, Meat Shield picked up some chicken legs and then started eating them and said, "Wow, delicious." The protagonist, smiling, looked at him and said, "You were great today, Meat Shield." And Corsac elbowed him and said, "That's chicken, you idiot. He should be more careful. He's not in a barn." And then he tried the chicken himself and cried out, "Wow, why so spicy?" Meat Shield chuckled. A dangerous assassin can't stand some spices. Pathetic. And then the protagonist asked, "Can they two get along for once?" And then Meat Shield said that the summoner is a good person. MC was surprised and he patted his chest and said that if he fed him chicken, he would give his life. The protagonist blushed with embarrassment and, laughing slightly, said, "Compared to what they guys do, chicken is nothing. He will rely more on him, Meat Shield." Then Corsac hit Meat Shield again and shouted, "It's chicken, dumbass." The next second, the protagonist got to his feet and angrily put his hands on his waist. He shouted that he scared him. Why is he bothering him if he's just enjoying the food? Corsac folded his hands behind his back and said that this meatball head seemed to need some manners. He thought he should watch this Meat Shield eat everything while the summoner was distracted. The next day, the system reported entering the 17th floor of the Black Tower. MC looked at his hands and smiled, thinking that now that he was level 17, he felt an uncontrollable power. His heart was pounding. Was the wild steed awakening within him again? Okay, time for him to join the fight. Then Corsac said, "Level 20 is the time to relax. Summoner Juhyuk, he will go forward." Meat Shield stepped forward and said, "Protect the summoner. The summoner must stand behind to survive." He replied, "Oh well." With that, the system reported, the mission of the 17th floor is to destroy 30 goblin warriors. The protagonist noticed armored goblins and thought he hadn't realized it while watching other players' walkthroughs, but seeing them all in person was incredibly frightening. There were at least 90 of them here. For monsters, these guys were well versed in strategy and tactics. The guide, after the strategy he'd watched before entering, said that when goblin warriors appeared, they should first retreat to a safe zone. When they returned, after waiting a while, their forces would naturally disperse and they would patrol in groups. They should lure them out and kill them 3 at a time without attracting aggro, and repeat until successful. While this was a standard strategy, it took a long time. He thought, then he summoned Meat Shield, and he turned around and asked, was the summoner calling him? He thought he didn't need such a tedious process. He pointed his hand forward and commanded, "Attack." The next second, Meat Shield spread his arms out to the sides and, expanding his chest, let out a loud scream, releasing powerful energy. MC thought, now that Meat Shield is here, he'll easily reach the 20th floor, maybe even higher. Then he ordered them all to be wiped out. He thought, okay, what's the next bonus? Meat Shield immediately used his powers and roared loudly, then ran off to destroy the goblins. They were frightened when they saw him and were dumbfounded. The goblins aimed their sharp spears at him, but a moment later they were all destroyed and scattered across the forest. Juhyuk was delighted by this development, especially since his resistance was incredible. That's how strategy works. Weight classes too. It's like 1,000 rental bicycles trying to attack a K2 Black Panther tank. The system notified him that he had achieved a rank on the 17th floor of the Black Tower of Korea. The reward for this rank was a platinum badge. Juhyuk confirmed how awesome he was, and Corsac began shouting, "Summoner Bon?" The system reported that the 18th floor's mission required eliminating 30 goblin assassins. They found themselves on the 18th floor, facing goblins, and Juhyuk immediately used Meat Shield. Surprisingly, these monsters utilized stealth skills. Meat Shield pinned all the goblins to itself, and a moment later, they disappeared. The protagonist was surprised by this, and realized that perhaps this wouldn't be as easy as he thought. Meat Shield began waving its arms and screaming at them to come out, blaming them for being murderers and cowards. A moment later, loud laughter rang out, and Corsac began shouting that he'd had enough, and had been watching the ignorant monster Meat Shield's strategy all this time, and that he was blaming him with his sophisticated strategy. Juhyuk watched his actions in bewilderment, and Corsac remarked that he couldn't hold a candle to stealth from these goblins. He used his shadow step skill and began eliminating goblins one after another. Juhyuk looked surprised, then realized he'd fallen for it. Corsac was nervous because his activity had recently slowed due to Meat Shield, so he told him to move by hitting him on the head. Meat Shield replied that he would also help, and Juhyuk thought that stimulating their competitive spirit had been successful. They must work hard and earn badges. He just needed to keep leveling up these cool abilities. At that moment, he drew his special sword and realized he was almost level 18. His stealthy wild stallion. When he used this skill, a stallion's head appeared in his place, and he realized he'd studied all the strategy information before entering the 18th floor. The goblin assassin's stealth skill is low level, so if he concentrates, he should be able to spot their movements. He has nothing to fear, and he trained his shadow step well while traversing the 15th floor. He began to move quickly toward the golems, but suddenly stopped and realized he was losing his balance. He stabbed his sword straight into the head of the golem, and the system reported that the goblin slayer's completion conditions were 10 out of 30. He caught it exactly as he planned, In any case, the hunt on the 18th floor was a success. Suddenly, he felt a goblin behind him attack him and froze. Corsac continued to sever the heads of the remaining goblins, destroying 18 of the 30. He declared everything was fine, then destroyed several more, and the system reported that the Goblin Slayer's completion conditions were 27 out of 30. Only 3 more remained. Corsac watched Meat Shield move, creating a magic circle around itself, moving abruptly and destroying the remaining monsters. He told him to continue helping, but Corsac yelled at him to get lost, saying he was in his way. By the way, where's Summoner Bon? The protagonist was under attack from a goblin and realized that if it weren't for the energy barrier, it would be dangerous. But was it because his adrenaline levels were soaring? The goblin's attacks seemed to be in slow motion. It felt as if the world had slowed down. A moment later, after the protagonist had destroyed the last of the attacking goblins, the system reported that the 18th floor clearing had been a success with an S++ rating. The reward was a platinum badge. Corsac ran to his summoner, and Ju Hyuk said he thought he had dealt the final blow. This upset Corsac, and he began to cry, saying, "Summoner Bon." At that moment, Manhwa received a notification, and was surprised that the 18th floor clearing had been a success. Kyung-soo exclaimed that this was excellent, and Kwang-il remarked that he couldn't be stopped. He had clearly prepared thoroughly. Kyung-soo said that if it were up to him, he would immediately reveal that this person is the Korean record holder for 18 consecutive S-rank clears. Kwang-il said he shouldn't say that, even jokingly. Manhwa said that revealing his identity was dangerous. Kyung-soo exclaimed that he was simply saying that he was so proud of him. Kwang-il announced that Bong Joo-hyuk is now a super special player who needs to be cared for even more carefully than elite teams. A new wind is blowing in the conquest of the Black Tower in Korea. After a 20-year hiatus, a whopping 18 consecutive S++ clears have occurred. This is an unprecedented record, and the history of the tower is being rewritten. This mysterious player is currently estimated to be level 19. Not only players, but the entire nation is interested in discovering the identity of this ranked player. At that moment, Corsac began screaming in terror as he looked at his phone, and Joo-hyuk said, "Mr. Corsac, don't let him breathe so hard. If he has something to say, let him say it now." He replied that everything was too fast, and he asked again, "What exactly?" Corsac replied that the speed at which he reveals his talent, sir, is very fast. Joo-hyuk asked again, "Talent, what?" It certainly wasn't him. Was he joking? He started waving his arms, and Corsac realized it wasn't a joke. He said that the summoner had demonstrated a perfect move at the end, one that even he would have difficulty imitating. This was even more dangerous. Therefore, he confirmed with the summoner that it was true. He would begin to find combat fun and gain confidence, and accordingly, the danger would increase proportionally. And if he became more pleasant, everything would become more dangerous. They had seen the promise at the very beginning, right? Safety first, self-preservation. Joo-hyuk confirmed these thoughts and said that he would definitely not do anything dangerous and would act carefully. Corsac grabbed him by the shoulders and said it was good. Joo-hyuk looked at Corsac in bewilderment, feeling a bad premonition, as he had a feeling their summoner would definitely cause a disaster one day. This seriously damaged his mood, and he started crying. Meat Shield asked if he was crying so hard. What an idiot he was. Corsac kicked him in the face and said he'd boil him alive. The force of the blow sent Meat Shield crashing to the floor, dropping everything he'd been taking out of the refrigerator. Joo-hyuk was furious that the refrigerator was ruined, and started yelling at them to stop wrecking the house and get back quickly. God, even the precious kimchi was all over the floor now. Tomorrow he might go to his parents to clear his head. The next morning, he went up to his parents' apartment building and told them he'd arrived. Mom told him to come inside, and Dad said that he didn't live that far away and could come by more often. Mom said that their son had a lot of work, so he should stop talking about it. Joo-hyuk asked how his hip joint was. He tried to get up and asked again. Did he really think bones heal that easily? He had been lying down for half a day. Joo-hyuk told him to stay lying down, and he replied that he could stand up for a bit. After that, Mom suggested they sit down, as she had made a stew. Joo-hyuk wondered where his brother was. She said that Min-hyuk had gone for tofu and would be back soon. After a while, she laid everything out on the tables, and the boys began to eat. He asked, "It's hard at home now, isn't it?" Mom told him not to worry, as she would soon be going back to work. Dad asked him not to worry about them, and just live his life. He shouldn't think about sending money. The protagonist wondered if maybe he needed to test the waters. It would be great if he awakened at such a time. At that moment, his parents got angry and told him not to mention it, and he realized he should have said it more gently. His father started yelling. Was that a joke? A guy who looked exactly like him, about to go to the tower? He wanted to tell him that his father was the kind of man who brought his wife to catch a cockroach. His brother also said that it was the funniest joke, and the protagonist didn't know what to say. His mother replied that it was nothing to be proud of. After that, his mother turned around and asked, "By the way, isn't today his work day?" He replied that it was his day off, but actually he quit everything a long time ago. Then she started goading him and asked, "It's written all over his face when he's going to die. Does he know it?" She sensed something was wrong. Joo-hyuk started yelling, "Is he lying? What is she talking about?" Mom replied that she still believes her son. Just don't let them get involved with loan sharks, no matter what. At that moment, Joo-hyuk was stunned by what he heard and felt memories he'd forgotten. This simply couldn't be happening. The news was breaking news. A brutal murder at Smile Cash. He asked what happened to Mom's job. Mom replied that it was all because of one rude customer. She went to fix the water filter, and they asked her to also clean up all the trash and food waste, as if she were some kind of servant. She didn't tolerate it and spoke her mind. True, after that, she was fired. Mom is proud and brave, a person who doesn't tolerate injustice. As for Dad's greatest achievement in life, he asked his mom out. A dad who fell head over heels in love with a mom like that is a true beta male. Dad's genes are pitiful and strong. In any case, they're all probably worried. He wants to talk about awakening when the situation calms down a bit. Sometime later, when they went outside, the protagonist handed Minhyuk some money and said it was pocket money for Mom and Dad. He should give it to them and make sure they didn't bother him. Minhyuk asked him to stop and, after a moment's thought, said yes. But then he thought he must be acting like this because he paid for his tuition last time. That little brat was probably too shy to say thank you. Joo-hyuk replied that he knew how he felt, the little brat, and Minhyuk asked again, really? Then he could say it straight out. Mom, Dad, doesn't he feel like something's missing? It seemed he'd forgotten his share. At that moment, he blushed with embarrassment, and Joo-hyuk understood what he meant, and transferred 500,000 won. Sometime later, he arrived in Seoul, at the Awakened Affairs office. He was planning to return home but decided to stop by. After meeting his family, the desire to do everything right only grew stronger. Kwang-il told him that if he planned to visit the Awakened store, he should please contact him in advance. Joo-hyuk repeated, it should be fine, right? If he went out to meet him again, it would just be awkward. He had an energy barrier, but the higher the floor, the stronger the monster, so it was best to buy a shield. Min-ah said he'd have to pay 100 million won, and he was dumbfounded when he heard that price. It was too heavy for him and too expensive, so there was nothing he could do if this was the only option. It was too expensive, and why was the employee a girl today? She couldn't even speak properly. And why were there so many people today anyway? There was no one there last time. They shouldn't look here. Min-ah suggested that this should also work. A round hand shield made of adamantium and sectonium alloy. It's small, lightweight, and capable of self-healing despite its low cost. He could try it on. He picked it up and realized it fit him perfectly, like it came with a mace. He really liked it. After that, he asked how much it cost. Min-ah replied that it was 40 million won. Should she help with the payment? He replied yes, he would take it and then touch the system screen and the payment was processed. He finally bought it. But why was talking to the staff so much more difficult than dealing with goblins? Okay, now he could go home. When he went outside, an unknown guy approached him and asked, he just awakened, right? He grinned, shook his hand, and said that he was also a player. Nice to meet you. He was Hosok. This situation was a little unnerving for Joo-hyuk. After that, he told him his name, and Hosok laughed and said that he comes to the store every day, so he wanted to meet him since he hadn't seen him before. Could he ask what floor he was on? He was currently on the 30th floor. Joo-hyuk replied that he was on the 10th floor, realizing that he was a high level. Hosok beamed with joy and said everything was clear, and if he had any difficulties during the game, he could ask him any questions. Joo-hyuk thought he was simple, like a natural-born extrovert. Joo-hyuk replied that it was difficult and, turning away, walked in the other direction. Hosok added that if he needed help, he should ask next time, as he was often here, and waved to him, saying goodbye. His communication skill had improved, which was amazing. With such a level, he probably even has a girlfriend? He was envious. After some time, night fell, and the system reported that the protagonist's level had risen to 19. Now he could challenge the 19th floor, but first he needed to summon Korsak and negotiate. Right? A moment later, Korsak was summoned via the designated summoning, and Korsak thanked him for his assessment as he emerged from the chest. Joo-hyuk announced that he had purchased a shield, and Korsak told him to look at it, saying he enjoyed it, even buying it. Did he have to do that? Joo-hyuk replied that he put safety above all else. He replied that the previous summoner had said the same, and Joo-hyuk told him not to worry, because he was a coward, so if the climb became difficult, he would immediately give up. Korsak told him to promise not to rush forward and not to rush into an attack. Joo-hyuk was surprised to hear this, and Korsak continued to say that if it became difficult for him, he should sacrifice him and Meat Shield to escape. Joo-hyuk replied that he promised, and Korsak continued to say that it was, of course, preferable to sacrifice only this fool and not him. Joo-hyuk replied that he understood everything, and Korsak said that then they would begin the cleansing, when suddenly he smelled a strange smell. He replied that he bought royal dumplings especially for him. Korsak was very happy about this and said, just think, he took care of him before someone like Meat Shield. Now he'd had a good meal. When he suddenly asked if there was anyone he might be holding a grudge against, he answered, of course not. There was someone outside. He was overwhelmed with murderous intent. Joo-hyuk asked again, murderous intent? At that moment, someone entered and greeted them, and Joo-hyuk told Korsak to hide for now. The system reported that an energy barrier had been used, an effect that protects the user with a damage-absorbing barrier. Suddenly, the door was destroyed, and small parts rolled across the floor. Joo-hyuk braced himself for this, and the same guy Hosok he'd seen recently approached him. He was holding a gun and greeted him, and Joo-hyuk began shouting that he was the one he saw in the player's store. Hosok asked again, Was he surprised? What a loser he was. He was tired of watching him. Ju-hyuk didn't understand why he was holding that gun. Please let him put that weapon away. Hosok started shouting. Who gave him permission to speak? Is he tired of living? Let him take off his bracelets and open his inventory before he turns his head into a sieve. Ju-hyuk understood. No. What was he thinking? He was pointing it at him. Hoseok started asking again. Did he really think this was a joke? Ju-hyuk saw Korsak attacking him from behind and realized, this is the end for this guy. Meanwhile, Hoseok was thinking that he froze only because he had a gun in his hands. This time, he had also gotten a great catch. Losers like that always open their inventory after one crack. He swung and shouted that before he beat him to death. Let him do it alive, when Korsak suddenly hit him on the head with an iron bar, causing him to cry out in pain. Hoseok didn't understand. Was there really someone else there? He started cursing and fell face first into the floor. Ju-hyuk was surprised by this turn of events and shouted to Korsak that it was a great job. He simply knocked him out and didn't kill him. He was already afraid he'd kill him again without fully understanding the situation, like some mindless bandit. Korsak asked again. Would he really do that? Well, this guy must be a fence. Killing players outside the tower and stealing their items is no different from regular civilians. That's what fences are. He'd heard about them. Kwangil had said that one of the advantages of an elite team is personal guards outside the tower because the players outside the tower are ordinary civilians. If he hadn't awakened the ability to summon creatures even outside the tower, he would have been completely helpless and died. He was convinced again and again that this was truly a cheating ability. Then, Korsak decided to dispose of the guy outside, but Ju-hyuk told him to hold back, because they'd just report it to the police. He replied that there was no need for that if he just took it away. But before Korsak could finish speaking, Ju-hyuk replied that everything was fine, and that reporting it to the police was the easiest way. A moment later, Kyung-soo started shouting, has player Bond been in the store again? Kwangil replied that he didn't even know about it. He asked again what he bought. Kwangil replied that he bought a small shield. If he'd signed a contract with the elite, he would have packed it from head to toe. Did they find out about player Bond's abilities? Judging by the purchase, they assume he's a close combatant. If he's a close combatant, even a full set of protective gear won't be enough. He'll come up with some excuse to get the players a full set of armor. At that moment, his phone rang, and when he looked at the screen, he saw that the police from the Special Department for Players was calling him. He was surprised and apologized, saying he needed to take a call. The police representative asked, is this Kwang-il from the Awakened Management Unit? A moment later, Kwang-il screamed. What did he just say? He immediately drove to Ju-hyuk's place and started running up the stairs. He needed to sign the elite contract right away, and if something happened to the Bond player, things would be dire. A moment later, they escorted Hoseok out of the building, and the police representative said, Miss Hoseok, he's being arrested for trespassing and robbery under the circumstances. Hoseok started screaming for them to wait a minute, saying he had a headache and they were gonna kill him this way. He's not guilty, officers. This guy kidnapped him. Actually, he's the victim. Ju-hyuk responded with bewilderment. No, he was the one who broke in. After these words, the policeman announced that the person living in the apartment would also have to come with them. Ju-hyuk realized that this simply couldn't be happening. Just don't let them tell him they'd send him to jail. At that moment, Kwang-il burst into the apartment and shouted for everyone to stop. Ju-hyuk was overjoyed to see him, as was Hoseok, who started shouting, Captain, isn't that him? Does he know him? Is he from the department? He literally just saved his life. This guy tried to kidnap him, tried to steal him, but before he could finish his sentence, Kwang-il slapped him in the face, sending Hoseok flying, blood spilling. He was surprised and didn't understand why he'd been slapped, and Kwang-il started screaming. How dare he lie? He dare kill another player? Hoseok offered to tell him to stop, saying he was the victim, but Kwang-il said his registration was cancelled, effective immediately. Hoseok didn't understand. He was level 34, so why would he stoop to robbery? Kwang-il realized he wasn't even listening to him. What was going on? He told him to take him away immediately, because people from the Awakened Rights Defense would arrive soon and they had to hand him over. Hoseok was terrified when he heard the Awakened Rights Defense and realized they weren't subject to torture if the crimes involved players. At that moment, he fell headfirst into the floor and started screaming that he'd made a mistake and begged for mercy. Kwang-il asked again, did he really think he was the first scumbag he'd seen committing such horror? He's a repeat offender, isn't he? They'll dig up everything he's done. Let him find a lawyer. Although it's unlikely anyone would want to defend him. Do they know the instructions for detaining players? He started screaming. No, if he escapes to the tower and disappears during transport, then you just have to wait. He's always in the same place. Hoseok screamed that he wouldn't do it again and told him to stop, but no one was listening anymore. Kwang-il approached Ju-hyuk and asked if he was injured anywhere. His face frightened him, and Ju-hyuk replied that he was just a little scared. That's all. At that moment, Kwang-il offered his sincere apologies to the player, and said that he would do everything possible to ensure that something like this never happened again. He could no longer postpone the contract and had to protect the player, Bon. Korsak started shouting, Did something happen yesterday? Ju-hyuk replied that it was all thanks to him. The police caught the guy yesterday. He asked again, will they execute him? Ju-hyuk replied that wasn't true, and Korsak asked if he by any chance knew where the pretrial detention center was. Ju-hyuk replied that he didn't know, and that he shouldn't even try to find out. The system reported that the barbarian Meat Shield had been designated as a summoned character. Meat Shield started screaming, 3 stars. 57 of them. This is the first time he's seen so many stars. He realized he could read, and the system reported that the entrance to the Black Tower of Korea, the 19th floor, was right in front of them. He would also defeat 30 goblin shamans. The goblins on the 19th floor are shamans, and frankly, they aren't particularly dangerous. They don't wield any powerful combat magic. At most, curses and weak fire arrows, although curses can be dangerous. What's there to worry about? At that moment, Meat Shield began to charge toward the goblins, who had ominous mana. He exhaled and began emitting bright beams of light. Ju-hyuk was surprised that he had cast a curse with just one sound. What a barbaric method. Korsak, standing behind Meat Shield, asked if he remembered what he said. They would finish this as soon as possible. Meat Shield replied that he remembered that they needed to destroy them all. They began to run together toward the enemies, eliminating them one by one with their combined efforts. Ju-hyuk decided he'd do it too, but suddenly the system reported they'd successfully completed the 19th floor mission. He didn't even have time to move before exclaiming, already? Korsak asked, how does that feel, Summoner? It's invigorating, isn't it? They deliberately finished so quickly that he couldn't fight. He'd been taken out. The system reported he'd achieved an S++ completion rank on the 19th floor of the Black Tower of Korea. The reward for S++ was a platinum badge. The next day, they found themselves near the entrance to the Black Tower, on the 20th floor. For Ju-hyuk, this was the long-awaited floor, also known as the talent evaluator. This is becoming monstrously difficult. Korsak, the community here is extremely dangerous, sir. Goblins of all kinds are encountered here. Scouts with poisoned needles, tactical warriors at maximum level, invisible assassins, shamans that appear out of nowhere, and the truly cursed giant hobgoblins. It's quite scary. In his place, he would have waited in a safe place, sir. Meat Shield confirmed these thoughts and told the summoner not to do anything, because he himself would kill everyone. The system reported the 20th floor mission, defeat 100 goblins of any type and 1 hobgoblin. Time limit, 10 hours. Completion conditions, 100 goblins of all types, 1 hobgoblin. Failure conditions, death or abandonment. Korsak exclaimed, okay, great. Ju-hyuk realized they were blocking his path again and were fighting, leaving him behind. Korsak turned to Meat Shield and told him to pull the ogre towards himself first, and he would attack when they opened up. He replied that he was pulling all hostile NPCs. At that moment, the goblins began attacking them from all sides. And Ju-hyuk asked, do they think he'll just sit and watch? At that moment, Korsak wondered why and saw Ju-hyuk abruptly move toward the goblins, shouting that he was going forward, Mr. Meat Shield. Ju-hyuk took the lead and began attacking the monsters with his powers. He realized he had done it. Korsak cried out in fear, Summoner Bon, no. He had been an introvert since childhood. The surrounding children shouted that they would play with him and talked among themselves while he sat alone in a corner. In elementary school, things only got worse. Finances became a rock before the conflict, and in middle school, he was also a loner. Even in high school, he ate lunch alone. It was the life of a complete outcast. He was afraid to even try to change anything. He understood that someone like him was fighting monsters in the tower, and he, who had looked like a bully, couldn't do it now. He couldn't even imagine such a thing. But monsters are not people, and there's no fear associated with communication. They're no different from mobs in computer games. He just needs to defeat them and get the reward. Korsak cried out in fear when he saw this, and Ju-hyuk confidently headed toward the goblin that was being attacked with spears. When he landed, he began eliminating one monster after another, destroying them one by one. Korsak realized that in such a short time, he had learned to use Shadow Step at this level. He stopped taking care when he saw multiple spears flying toward him, and Ju-hyuk covered himself with the shield he had recently acquired. He looked at this in shock and realized that if it weren't for the energy barrier, he would have already turned into a pincushion. This is truly scary. Could it be that he got too carried away? At that moment, he cried out, and the other goblins began running after him, shouting for help. Korsak cried out, yes, Sir Summoner. First he must move to the cliff. Meat Shield also said he would protect his summoner while fighting the monsters, and Ju-hyuk realized his stamina was running low while running away from the remaining goblins. He noticed the cliff ahead and realized they had already arrived, but there was nothing there. What should he do now? He stopped in front of the goblins alone and realized he was going to die. But at that moment, Meat Shield pounced on the goblins, and as soon as he got closer, they froze and trembled. He slammed his massive fist into the goblins' gathering place, and Ju-hyuk exclaimed that it was excellent work. The monsters began to be thrown back by such incredible force, and Korsak also began to protect his summoner, and realized that if he could just deal with the shamans on the cliff, everything would be fine. A moment later, it was all over, and he assumed they'd caught all 100, and a window would soon appear, prompting Ju-hyuk to exclaim that the two of them had cleared them out in the blink of an eye. He asked Meat Shield to move a little, as he'd shielded him with his back, when suddenly Ju-hyuk felt a sound. The long-legged goblin is sad, and due to its short legs, it's the final stage of goblin evolution. This is the hobgoblin they must destroy. When this goblin appeared out of nowhere, Corsac pounced on it and shouted, "Meat shield," which screamed to leave it to him. He ran at the monster with incredible speed and grabbed it by the neck, and Corsac shouted that today he would earn his keep and should hold on to the goblin tightly. A moment later, the creature was destroyed, and the system reported that all goblin species had been destroyed, and they had successfully completed the 20th floor missions. Their level had now increased, and the rewards included a 2-kilogram mana stone and a Tower 5 exclusive healing potion. Corsac chuckled, saying it was excellent work, and he'd done it to remove the mob in an instant, as he'd expected it would be better to leave it to them. In any case, he bowed and said they had all worked hard. Thank you for protecting him. Meat Shield and Corsac fell at his feet. The system notified them that they had received an S++ completion market on the 20th floor of the Black Tower, a reward for completing the new badge. He could challenge the 21st floor, the exit from the Black Tower of Korea. Sometime later, a video of the 20th floor of the Black Tower appeared online. Many commentators were surprised and shared their thoughts. Then, Kyung-soo put his phone on the table and said that the record on the 20th floor was good, but it would be problematic if too much attention was focused on it. Min-ah asked if they should try to control the press. He replied no, because then it would be obvious they knew the 3 athletes. How did they check the marital status of player Bong? Min-ah replied that she had conducted a discreet investigation. The player's father, Mr. Bong Suchul, had hip surgery several months ago after falling on the ice and is currently undergoing rehabilitation. He asked if they could help him, and Min-ah replied that she planned to enroll him in the best rehabilitation center in the country. Of course, it would be fully funded. Kyung-soo responded, okay, they can do it. She then explained that he also had a younger brother, Min-yuk, a university freshman, who would soon be enlisting in the army. Scholarship support was the perfect perk. And finally, his mother, Ms. Gumja. Kyung-soo asked what she did. Min-ah replied that she worked as a water purifier coordinator, but was currently unemployed and apparently forced to leave the company after a conflict with a rude customer. Kwang-il suggested that, for reference, the person they should pay more attention to was Miss Jumja. She always had the final say in the family, and her character was so strong that neither her husband nor her sons dared to utter a word. Kyung-soo replied that everything was clear, and then this plan was also good. They had to carry out the task. Even if it meant using all the powers of the Awakening Affairs Administration, they had to succeed. Kwang-il replied that they would immediately begin supporting the player's family. At that moment, Corsac said that the delivery smelled delicious. Meat Shield also exclaimed, "Delivery is delicious." He had destroyed his house and couldn't sit still. Joo-hyuk covered Meat Shield with a blanket and told him to hide for a minute so they wouldn't be seen. When the delivery man came inside, he said there were 12 servings of different dishes. They'd ordered so much, maybe he was having a party tonight? He replied that it was true, and the delivery man said he thought so he'd included a free fried dumpling. He wished him bon appetit and let him order from them again. He thought about it. One free fried dumpling was too stingy. When he looked at the food, he realized there weren't any coupons. Wasn't that too much? Actually, even if he had coupons, he didn't know how anyone could order food with coupons. And just as the courier left, he announced they could come out. Corsac exclaimed that the smell of food was simply incredible. He hadn't tried it yet, had he? Meat Shield? Meat Shield was drooling, saying it was so crispy and delicious. Corsac exclaimed that people don't eat a plate. He was just ignorant. Joo-hyuk told them to sit down. He needed to check something. He opened his inventory, and the system announced that bonuses would be awarded for accumulating 20 platinum new badges. He realized that he had already earned 20 platinum badges, and he wondered what the bonus would be this time. In one random box, and he wondered, what was that? A random box? The system announced that, specifically, 3 random items would appear that could be found in the tower. Like a mana stone, more than 10 types of tower, 3 types of tower metal, and so on. When the protagonist saw this, he grabbed his head and asked, so many types? Maybe he'll just skim through it. It's all random anyway. Grass and metal stones are so-so, and the weapons and armor aren't particularly impressive. Does the level up rune mean everything stays the same, but only the level increases? The tower jump ticket means he skips a floor and levels up. Wait, then he won't get a reward for completing it? But who needs that anyway? The level up rune is much better. It seems the access ticket allows you to protect others. Perhaps this ticket is better because of that, and if he's guaranteed to get a summon ticket with enemy confirmation, he could task the summoned one with clearing it out and conquer the tower himself, just lying on the couch. It said 3 items would drop randomly, right? Then he has a chance. He opened it and thought that if something good dropped, he would live a righteous life. A chest appeared in front of him, and he waited hopefully for the results, and the system reported that he had received a 10-kilogram mana stone. The protagonist fell to his knees and realized it was a dud. He could get the mana stones at any time, although selling them would cost 5 million won. So what did the second chest contain? The system reported that the Primordial Mayhem skill had been acquired and was registered in the status window. Joo-hyuk was surprised and asked if it sounded right. Was it an attack-type skill? He'd check it later. He opened the last chest and received a summoning rank up rune. He was surprised and realized it was the jackpot. The system informed him that he could increase the rank of the summoned creature. This was one of the things he wanted most, and the problem was which of the two to give it to. They were both equally reliable, so it was a dilemma. But perhaps he should give it to Corsac, right? After all, they shared many months together. Although Meat Shield ate more rice, the system reported that the summoning rank up rune is a rune that increases the rank of a summoned creature. The increase depends on the creature's potential. The summoned creature cannot be summoned until the upgrade is complete. He'd have to summon Corsac separately later to give it to him, but in any case, he wasn't having any trouble right now. He'd better test this skill first. The system reported that the first of these pogroms emits blunt weapons with lightning power, and that only 3 forms are growth skills. He needed that skill. Great. He wanted to learn it. The first form of primordial thunder, soul-chasing lightning, was unlocked. He realized it felt like the knowledge of how to use it was being transmitted directly to his brain. He should try it. He grabbed his staff and shouted, "Soul-chasing lightning." But a moment later, nothing happened, and he realized it hadn't worked. If he could use that power in reality, chaos would have ensued long ago. He'd try it later inside the tower. Corsac asked in surprise, why was he suddenly swinging his mace? He replied that he'd received the skill as a bonus, and Corsac asked again, wasn't it an offensive skill by any chance? He replied yes, and a growth skill at that. This upset Corsac, who dropped his plate of food and replied, no. Meat Shield picked it up from the floor and ate it. This enraged Corsac and started hitting him, yelling that it was his last bowl and that he should spit it out. Idiot. Meat Shield replied that he wasn't spitting, and Juhyuk said, stop it already. Next day, he was dejected and thought that it wasn't that he didn't understand Corsac's concern, but rather the summoning ability he had awakened. This ability provides a large portion of a player's combat power through summoned creatures. In other words, it means the summoner doesn't necessarily have to engage in combat, especially for someone as unusual as him, who can summon creatures in reality. The person who supposedly possessed the same ability somewhere in a parallel universe was the summoner who must have summoned Corsac before him. At the very least, he must have been much stronger than him. And he, too, died, and the world he lived in was destroyed. He's so worried at this time, but he's also human and has only just awakened and begun to feel the taste of being a real man. He must use the same skill he learned, and they're both completely submissive to him, and he should be able to convince them. The system reported that Kyungsoo and Corsac had been chosen as summoners, and Corsac said in a trembling voice that he was cold here. Juhyuk wondered how worried he'd been about his face becoming like this in just one day. He'd mentioned that such a skill was possible. Honestly, he'd been worried even on the 20th floor, and he was lucky it was goblins. Juhyuk had thought so. It was because he'd acquired such a skill. He didn't know about goblins, but orcs, no way. He was apologizing in advance and about to commit a mortal sin. Juhyuk asked again, does he mean tie him up or something? Do he do it with a bow? Corsac responded threateningly, of course not, but he decided to activate Summoning Principle 3. When he activated it, Meat Shield grabbed Juhyuk with both arms and began holding him. Corsac had yelled at him to hold him after entering the tower. You jerk, how many times do I have to tell you? Meat Shield didn't understand what was happening, and Corsac said that Meat Shield would keep the summoner Bon inside the tower to keep him safe, and that he would handle the cleanup alone. Juhyuk realized that the two were in cahoots. He didn't want to let things get to that point. But he told Corsac not to be like that, to cut him some slack just this once and be careful. He did this with such sad eyes. Corsac replied that he couldn't trust him, and Juhyuk continued to plead with him, because honestly, he swears by what he has, he'll never run out alone again. Corsac asked again, really? He replied that just walking around was boring, so let him catch at least one carefully and slowly. That was possible, right? Let him believe him. And he replied that he'd only do it once, safety above all else, as well as self-preservation. Corsac replied that if he insisted, fine, but if the situation became dangerous, he would immediately intervene. Juhyuk was glad they had reached an agreement, and after a while they found themselves near the entrance to the Black Tower on the 21st floor. Corsac was saying that orcs were strong but stupid, and of course, incredibly smarter than Meat Shield. Meat Shield replied that he was smarter than the orc, and Corsac teased him. Juhyuk asked them to wait and suggested they practice just 10 times before leaving. Corsac replied that they could do it at least 100 times. They had a training dummy and Meat Shield. He suggested hitting him. Juhyuk asked, is he telling him to hit Mr. Meat Shield right now? Corsac suggested simply hitting him 10 times. Even if he hit him with all his might, there wouldn't be a scratch, since Meat Shield was perfect for training. Meat Shield replied that he could hit him. It wouldn't hurt, just tickle. Juhyuk exclaimed, enough, if they keep this up, he'll just rush in there alone, okay? He still knew how to use it, and instead of hitting Mr. Meat Shield, it was easier to practice on the orc himself. So he decided he needed to do it this way. The system announced the 21st floor mission. Defeat 30 forest orcs, time limit 4 hours. The orcs began attacking, and at that moment, Corsac exclaimed that he was going first. Meat Shield said he was coming too, and deftly leaped upward onto the first goblins that crossed his path, instantly destroying them by snapping their necks. Juhyuk watched in amazement and realized it was happening so quickly and at such a pace that he was finished before he'd caught even one. One of the goblins appeared near Corsac, and he realized he'd chosen one for him. Good. At that moment, he rushed forward and shouted that he would cover his rear. He tried to strike the goblin, who was ready. The orc made a sharp movement with his sword, but it was no use. Ju-hyuk leaped again, using the first form of soul-chasing lightning, which is a simple vertical strike. He swung and realized that his power, the primordial thunder staff, soul-chasing lightning, was by no means weak. When he struck the ogre, he smiled at the glowing magic he saw before him. He brought the monster down to the ground and looked majestically at the creature, realizing it had been too easy. Then he rushed to attack another one, and realized he would do it right away, when Meat Shield suddenly destroyed the ogre with a stomp. Ju-hyuk turned to his friends, and repeated that they had agreed to catch only one, with a sense of effort. A moment later, they completed the 21st floor's quest and leveled up, receiving a mana stone and an exclusive tower healing potion. They reached the plus clear rank on the 21st floor of the Black Tower, earning a reward. A platinum badge was awarded for clearing the rank. The next day, they continued to struggle, and the system reported that they had reached the plus clear rank on the 22nd floor of the Black Tower, and a day later, they reached the 23rd floor. It was a bit of a struggle with the orc. One day with Corsac and Meat Shield, they were quite easy to clear, and they were unstoppable. After another day, they reached the long-awaited 25th floor. But killing ogres one at a time was starting to feel like a mockery, and he still needed to practice. Come to think of it, he hadn't given any items to either Meat Shield or Corsac since they joined him, and he should have given him a rune since he was already here. Corsac, who was in the corridor after the summoning, asked, "Didn't he say he was resting today, sir?" Ju-hyuk replied that he'd picked it up on the way and tossed it to him. He was surprised and asked, "What is this supposed to be?" Ju-hyuk told him to check it himself, and when Corsac picked it up, the system announced it was a summoning rank-up rune, which increases the rank of the summoned creature. Corsac started screaming, "What is this? Is this really a rank-up?" He was shocked by the emotion he felt, and Ju-hyuk asked, "It's not bad. Does he like it?" Corsac shouted that he was really giving it to him. "This is simply amazing," he said, "because if he uses it, he'll level up to the next rank." And he was overwhelmed with emotion. Now he could protect the summoner even better. He was so happy. Ju-hyuk smiled, seeing him like this, because it made him happy too. He asked, "Will Corsac start the upgrade right now?" Corsac replied with tears in his eyes that he really wanted to do it, but it was dangerous to do it in a hurry. Ju-hyuk thought it wasn't happening immediately, and Corsac continued to say he'd make sure it happened when he returned today, and then he'd appear before him in a completely different, cool guise. Ju-hyuk asked again, was he leaving already? Since he was already here, he might as well stay a little longer. Corsac replied that he'd watch TV then, and sat down on the floor, saying how many times had this been repeated, he could just watch it on tape. Ju-hyuk replied that they were just replaying the same thing over and over again, and they were paying for it. He shouldn't worry about the money, and watch it off the record if he wanted. Suddenly they saw something on TV, and Ju-hyuk exclaimed, "Wait, let him change the channel back." At a certain point, he stopped and saw his mother on the news, speaking out against an unfair world. He didn't understand why she was there. She was protesting against contract termination, and she was there to improve the working conditions of water purifier managers and prevent company abuses. She couldn't stand this unfair contract termination any longer. The employee who came to install the water purifier told her to sort the waste at the exit. It was terrible. But what angered her even more was that the company told her to apologize to the client, even though she had done nothing wrong. So why should she apologize? When she didn't comply, she received a notice of contract termination. All she got from her lone protest for over 10 days was ridicule from the company's management. Everyone said she was doing a useful job and must have seen this somewhere. Jumjo was furious and silently told them to just try laughing next time, and she'd punch them right in the nose. At that moment, a gentleman approached her and asked if she was Miss Gimja. The man thanked her for her efforts and said he was from a law firm, and his name was Chang Suk, a lawyer. Jumja asked again, "A law firm?" At that moment, she became even more enraged and started shouting, "Is the company trying to sue her or what? Let them just try. She won't back down. Let him tell them that." Chang Suk asked her to calm down, because he had actually come to help her and was suggesting she formally sue the corporation. She was surprised and asked again, "What?" The best law firm in Korea, they, Park and Kim, would represent her pro bono. She had filed a petition with the labor inspectorate, hadn't she? He had heard about it from a government official he knew. She should be surprised. But it was a project the firm carried out every year to address the social vulnerability of its population. It seemed suspicious to her, but it didn't seem like a lie. So, would she agree? Chang Suk explained that she had lived conscientiously, so she should consider herself a little unlucky. They would stake their honor on winning this case. She realized she had come this far, so let it be what it was. She replied, "Okay," and that she trusted them to defend her. He replied that she was now in good hands and suggested starting with working with the media. At that moment, everyone started taking pictures of the frightened Gumja, and he said she could answer these reporters' questions for as long as she could. They'd edit it later, asking her not to reveal any instances of unfair treatment she'd suffered, and offering to reveal the whole naked truth. Jumja frowned and was forced to tell it all. Ju-hyuk, sitting on the floor, realized how much his mother had suffered. What good were two sons? They were ungrateful pigs who couldn't even be relied upon at a time like this. Wait, but how did she find a lawyer? If it was a law firm, a few cents clearly wouldn't cut it. Korsak asked if maybe he should visit the company where his mother worked. He remembered that he had a rough idea of the situation, which was commendable, but judging by his mother's interview, she had found herself a pretty decent lawyer. Korsak replied, "Okay, he just thought their head would suit you." His ribbon. Joo-hyuk was thinking he'd at least need to send the money to a lawyer later. The mana stones he'd already collected were 27 kilograms, worth about 10 million won. If that wasn't enough, he'd sell the energy shield. Just then, his father called, and when he answered, he asked what happened. Suchul asked if he'd seen the news. He shouldn't worry, just in case, since they said the lawyer's services were free. He also said something about supporting social groups, and Joo-hyuk asked again, free? But he'd planned to send the money to a lawyer if he had to. Suchul asked again, where did he get the money? In any case, he shouldn't worry about his mother and keep working hard. He also got a call from Ilseong Hospital today. Joo-hyuk asked again, why from there? He replied that the hospital's orthopedic department was implementing a hip surgery reduction program, and they'd chosen him specifically, so he'd be hospitalized there in a few days. And by a lucky coincidence, they'll even cover the hospitalization and rehabilitation costs. So he shouldn't worry about his parents, understand? Joo-hyuk replied that everything was clear. He'd be coming home again soon. When he hung up, he realized it was the best hospital in Korea, owned by a conglomerate, and that was good. But wasn't that weird? Suddenly, someone called him. It turned out to be Minhyuk, and he realized that the family was celebrating some special day. Minhyuk asked if he'd seen his mother's interview, and Joo-hyuk replied that he had. Minhyuk said they were freaks, and he thought he'd explode with anger, knowing how hard his mother worked. So, he was thinking of sending his mother the allowance he'd given him. If the case went to court, he'd need a lot of money. Joo-hyuk mentioned needing a laptop, but Minhyuk said he was fine and now had enough money to pay for his studies and buy one, since he'd received a scholarship. Perhaps if you live kindly, luck smiles on you? Joo-hyuk wondered where the scholarship could have come from. He replied that it was a national scholarship run by the Office of Awakened People, and it was unusual for them to hand out so many scholarships. He replied that it was great, and that he should study hard. Joo-hyuk realized that this wasn't just luck. Mom's lawyer, Dad's hospital, and Minhyuk's scholarship were all the work of the Office of Awakened People. Sometime later, he called Kwang-il and asked if he had time so they could meet somewhere quiet. Kwang-il replied that he'd pick him up and suggested they have lunch. When they were at lunch, Joo-hyuk asked why he did it. He asked again, what exactly? Joo-hyuk replied that he meant it because it was absolutely necessary. Joo-hyuk realized he wasn't even hiding it. Kwang-il continued to say that if he had a problem at home, it would inevitably create anxiety that could affect his tower clearing. Joo-hyuk replied that even if that were true, without consulting him at all, wasn't such concern only applied to the elite team? Wasn't he on a regular contract? At that moment, Kwang-il slammed his fists on the table and said he was offering him an ultra-elite contract as a special management object. They could sign it right now, an elite team contract. And he asked again, what? He realized this guy had indeed prepared, but he still wasn't sure, and he didn't have much talent. A silence passed between them, and suddenly Kwang-il asked again, does he honestly think that even after setting an unprecedented record? Joo-hyuk's mouth dropped open in shock, and he realized he had no answer to that. He'd cleared 24 floors in a row with an S rank, and it would sound like false modesty, so Kwang-il started pleading with him. Joo-hyuk said he shouldn't do that, and Kwang-il asked again, hadn't he recently experienced an incident with that guy, Hoseok? Please let him join the elite team and receive the treatment he deserves. He's more than worthy of it. Joo-hyuk asked him to sit down first, as he felt awkward. Kwang-il said that if he signed with the elite team, at least something like that would never happen again, because he'd get VIP-level personal security. Joo-hyuk thought about how inconvenient it was to have someone following him around all the time, and he didn't want his clearings filmed. One of the main reasons he wasn't signing the contract was the player's obligation to record video. He didn't want Korsak and Meat Shield exposed and dragged into trouble. Kwang-il replied that he could do whatever he wanted with the video recording, and that security could be adjusted at his discretion. Joo-hyuk asked how exactly. Joo-hyuk replied that he could simply live a normal life alone, but in a well-guarded location, and security would only accompany him during outdoor activities. If he wanted a bodyguard, they would also provide him with a family member. He reflected that when it came to family matters, he shouldn't hesitate, and that immediately after signing the contract, the elite team would provide 2 houses, one for his family and one for himself. He couldn't understand how he could refuse this and said he appreciated such directness. But how could the matter be resolved so quickly? Kwang-il thought that, judging by his expression, he had already agreed and said he was very worried. He had come with full authority from the commissioner. He can sign this here. Suddenly, his ballpoint pen started twitching and he asked for a minute. Kwang-il didn't understand why so suddenly, considering they were close. Joo-hyuk asked for a little more time and he asked again, why? Joo-hyuk replied that he wanted to consult before making a decision. Kwang-il understood and said he would wait for him. The next day, Korsak announced that a super rare assassin had arrived with him. His rank up was complete and the protagonist's eyes even hurt from the brightness, asking him to return to normal. He asked again, won't he call Meat Shield? Joo-hyuk replied that before clearing the 25th floor, he called him separately because he wanted wanted to discuss something. He asked again, is it possible to talk with this ignorant meat shield? So everything is correct. The protagonist began the conversation and said that yesterday he met with the team leader from the Awakened Affairs Management Department and received an application. Now he's considering whether to stay on the regular team or join the elite team. What does he think about it? Corsac replied that he doesn't mind, as summoning Bon is a national level player, and he should get the treatment he deserves. Joo-hyuk asked again, will that be okay with them? If he joins the elite team, he might have to go up to floor 60, or who knows how high. He replies that it's absolutely possible, and Joo-hyuk suggests that he'll train hard to be as useful as possible. Corsac replies that it's enough for Bon's summoner to live a long life, and the summoner's safety is power itself. Joo-hyuk suggested that even if that were true, but before he could finish, Corsac pointed out that the space he occupied before the summoning was full of summoned legend rank creatures. As long as the summoner is safe, he will one day be able to summon them all, and they will all be completely obedient to the summoner. If he refuses, they will comply, as long as it doesn't violate the third principle, of course. That's all. There are even a few demigod-level monsters that surpass humans. Joo-hyuk wondered, summoned creatures at the demigod level surpassing humans? He couldn't even imagine it. He wouldn't be able to summon such high-ranking creatures, right? Corsac replied, yes right now, but later, when his summoning abilities improve, he'll be able to do so. So please, let him live a very long time and just perform random summons regularly. That's the ultimate skill and the deadly technique of a summoner. Joo-hyuk thought that since the cooldown for random summons takes about a month, that's 12 times a year, and if good items drop, he could do it even more often. But of course, all this would be for nothing if he had bad luck with the summons. He had 19 more days until the next random summoning. Corsac said that instead, he should make one firm demand. The decision to clear the floors not yet cleared was made exclusively by the summoner, Bon, without outside interference. He must set these conditions. He overpaid, so it was up to him to decide whether to defend the upper floors. Corsac noted that this was important, otherwise all the trash would throw a tantrum, asking why he wasn't climbing the cleared upper floors. And then, unprepared, something could happen. Joo-hyuk realized he must have remembered something painful, and Corsac started shouting that he should never be dragged by force. In any case, if these were the conditions for guaranteed government support, it was good. Joo-hyuk thanked him for his opinion and was surprised that he didn't object. The system reported a catalog. A stupid, thieving meat shield from the Great Plains tribe was designated as the summoned one. Meat Shield appeared and announced that his summoner was absolutely obedient. He spoke awkwardly, and Joo-hyuk greeted him, and Corsac asked if he wouldn't greet him. Meat Shield turned around and said a warrior wouldn't greet just anyone, and Corsac got angry and said he was rank SSR, super rare. He had 2 S's before his R's, unlike the pathetic R's. Meat Shield said he was bad, and he should bend over, because that was the level difference between them. Meat Shield was now avoiding Corsac's gaze, since the difference in ranks was 2 levels. Even Meat Shield tiptoed around him. Next time he got a rune for a summoning rank increase, he would definitely give it to Meat Shield. After all, he felt sorry for him now. They could get a platinum badge this time too, right? But why was he acting like this? He was a special rank? A moment later, they entered the Black Tower on the 25th floor. The 25th floor mission required defeating 100 orcs of any type and 1 Great Orc Chieftain. The time limit was 10 hours. There were a lot of them, and Joo-hyuk could have quietly captured 1 or 2 more, but at that moment, Corsac decided to stretch his legs to celebrate his new rank. He told Meat Shield to be first and gather aggro. Meat Shield shouted that he was now eating all the aggro and rushed forward. But suddenly, the monsters became frightened of him, and a moment later, he destroyed most of the area. Corsac shouted that he was now entering the train and began destroying one monster after another with incredible speed. Joo-hyuk clutched his head and realized he would be a fighter, and he quickly destroyed the monsters. Corsac also used his explosion skill, which allowed him to easily repel the attacks. Joo-hyuk realized that the explosion affected even nearby orcs. It was no longer a simple blade explosion, but rather a bazooka. On the other side, monsters began attacking Corsac, who tried to attack him, but he easily and deftly avoided all of them, greatly surprising the monsters. It was a surprise, a sneaky ambush skill that caused the monsters to fall under Corsac's yoke and be destroyed. When the other monsters saw this, they froze and began trembling with fear. Corsac asked why they had such sour expressions. He used his poison dagger skill. They were only just beginning. He remembered that before they killed them all, he also needed to do something, so he used his shadow step skill. With this skill, he rushed into the attack, recalling Corsac's words, that a summoner's long life was enough. He had heard this from Corsac, but he must grow quickly, so quickly that everyone who cared about him could rest easy. As he charged into battle, he realized he couldn't rely on Corsac forever. He too had to become strong. He pounced on the monster and kicked it aside, causing it to fall to the ground. He then looked around, trying to figure out what was happening. Joo-hyuk said, This is the primordial thunder staff, first form, lightning, that haunts the soul. He struck the monster with his staff, causing his purple blood to spill. Afterward, he saw several more monsters approaching and used his skill. With this skill, he was able to destroy the remaining monsters, and the system informed him that he now had the primordial thunderstaff's second form, scattered falling thunder, which had been blocked. He was delighted by this and realized that this time he would immediately know how to use it. Thunder disperses? What kind of technique was this? He created a huge magic circle around himself and said, Primordial Thunderstaff, second form. A moment later, numerous monsters he had destroyed with incredible speed were automatically repelled. It was an area of effect attack, and when he realized this, he smiled. Corsac asked if there was an orc using lightning here. When he saw that he was fighting with these orcs, he cried out his name and immediately ran to him. He shouted that he shouldn't be so happy just because he'd unlocked a new skill. And hadn't they agreed that he would only catch one monster per floor? Juhyuk apologized to him, but suddenly asked why he was apologizing to the creature he'd summoned. He started yelling. Why must he always tiptoe around in front of them? He might be a weakling on the outside, but inside the tower, he was a true alpha male. Corsac replied that safety came first, and Juhyuk asked them not to talk about it anymore. He'd let the great ogre chieftain come out and run up and smash the creature's head off. When he turned around, he saw this powerful creature right next to him, and realized he hadn't expected it to happen right then. This scared him, and he started screaming at Mr. Corsac, who immediately grabbed him by the body and started walking away. Juhyuk realized he should have listened to Corsac sooner. He exclaimed that these were orcs, and they had to get rid of them right now. The ogre glared at his enemies, and Corsac asked him to leave it to them. Meatshield was also ready for battle, and Corsac offered to lead the way. They rushed toward the monster together, and Meatshield swung his enormous arm and struck the monster with incredible force, stunning the ogre. A moment later, Meatshield kicked off and struck him twice in the shoulders, knocking him to the ground. He used the skill Full Ambush, and Corsac destroyed him completely. Moments later, they completed the 25th floor quest and received numerous prizes and rewards. Bonuses are awarded for accumulating 25 platinum badges. He could choose an encore bonus. Available encore bonuses include trait enhancement, sign copying, a random item, and an increase in summon rank. He was surprised by his luck and pressed the Awakening Trait Strengthened button. He'd be a fool to choose anything other than Awakening Trait Strengthened. Now his stats had changed, and he realized his summoning had increased to 3, including himself, making it a 4-person party. The random summon cooldown was about 18 days away, so who would be the third member of the team? In the meantime, what did they want to eat today? They found themselves in an apartment, and Corsac suggested his favorite spicy dish, but Juhyuk was surprised, since he'd never eaten spicy food. Corsac replied, have you forgotten? He's a new rank now. He'll be the island's dog. That's a thing of the past. They'd also done well on the 25th floor, so they could eat as much as they wanted. When Meatshield started eating the spicy dish, he replied that it wasn't spicy at all, but sweet. And Corsac asked, really? He started eating it too, but suddenly the spiciness gripped his stomach, and he began screaming in pain and horror. Meatshield blurted out that he was about to die, so he needed to throw this guy out and summon a new one. Juhyuk smiled and thought about how he could tell his family about this progress. When he arrived at his parents' house, he mentioned that his son had bought beef. Minyuk asked where he got the money from. He whispered that he'd tell them soon, and suddenly his mother exclaimed, how much did he spend on it? Did he keep the receipt? Suchul approached him and told her to stop. It's been hectic lately, right? Their son treats them, so he suggests they just enjoy the meal together. After that, Suchul said that it was expensive food and really delicious. Jomja asked why the men in this house love meat so much. Now they should eat fruit. Juhyuk felt a sense of relief. Mom's soup, dad's treatment, his little brother's university education, everything had worked out well, so he said that everyone shouldn't be surprised. He had awakened, and in fact, he was now a player. Everyone was stunned by what he heard, and Minyuk told him to just eat some fruit. Jumja also shook her head and said it was a weird joke. Suchul asked, is he talking about a game or something? Juhyuk looked at them silently and called Kwang-il, the team leader. The next day, he brought them to the special section of the Awakened, and their mother asked, is this true? Has he awakened? Kwang-il replied that it was true, and that he was a valuable talent for the nation. Minyuk was surprised when they said he was an elite player, and Kwang-il confirmed that the player was waiting upstairs. Please come in. Juhyuk called them to their new apartment and said that his family could now live there. The entire family was stunned and looked at the expensive apartment with incredible amazement. The protagonist signed a contract at the Awakened Salvation Management Department some time ago. Until recently, he never imagined signing an elite contract. Life is truly unpredictable. Kwang-il apologized for only being able to offer 2 billion won a year because the starting salary for elite players is regulated. In reality, someone like him, a bond player, should receive much more. Juhyuk considered the idea of only 2 billion. He felt his sense of reality suddenly paralyzed. He replied that it was fine, it was his own choice. He simply felt uneasy if people officially revealed his S++ rank record holder. If that happened, his personal information would also be exposed. If his face appeared on TV, social media, and in the media, it might become difficult for his family to even go outside. The very thought of that was terrifying, which is why he even more forcefully stated that he was the record holder. Kwang Il then asked if his family liked the house. If there are any shortcomings, please let him feel free. Joo-hyuk replied that this was more than enough, and Min-hyuk wrote him a message expressing his amazement at their new home. It couldn't be better. Kwang Il said that the office hotel where he would be staying was also ready for him. They had prepared it with all the amenities, including appliances and furniture, so he could move in right away. But was he really okay with a 2-bedroom apartment of 24 pyong? He replied that it was so beautiful there, it was like a penthouse for him. The largest penthouse in Korea, located in Seoul, belonged to a man who was swimming in the pool with beautiful women. When he emerged, he asked how much longer they would swim like this. Bored, he suggested they go and have some fun. It was South Korea's #1 player, Chol Min. His trait is that he's an all-around warrior, highly skilled in all types of weapons, possessing numerous mass lethal and ultimate skills, and currently ascending to the highest floors, the 66th floor, of the Black Towers in Korea. He drank alcoholic drinks to the bottom, where a glass of this costs 5 million won. He asked the girls, is it really that bad? One of them replied that the alcohol was very sweet today, and I think she'll drink it all. They laughed, and Chol Min replied that she has an incredible sense of smell, baby. She replied, yeah, she's curious about something. He's a top player, he should know that. He asked again. What? She asked. Who is that? The holder of the record for consecutive S++ rank clears on the 25th floor. Every time people gather now, they only talk about that. She's really very curious. He asked again, what's so bad about the 25th floor? He's not interested in some low-level brat. The girl replied, come on, a ++ clear is a world record. Isn't he curious that such a player exists in their country? Another girl suggested they stop talking about it, when suddenly he yelled, no, she can keep talking, and poured alcohol right on her head. After that, he said, listen carefully. If he stops clearing the 66th floor right now, what does she think will happen? The girl shook with fear and didn't answer. Chol Min continued to say that now the Black Tower is in the middle of nowhere. But what if next time it appears near a major city? Then South Korea will be completely destroyed. He broke the bottle and decided to check if it was true or not. The girls started crying and apologized. He said that the tower would collapse because of her. Scum. After that, he put on a robe and said he felt like shit. Seriously. And those girls for players only talk about this. So he invited ordinary girls of easy virtue, but they went there too. They repeated the rank ++, causing him to cover his face with his hand and think about how China contacted him this month, just like last month. And the conditions were an annual salary of 180 billion won. On top of that, a mansion and staff, a private jet, and the treatment equivalent to that of a national leader. What about Japan? An annual salary of 200 billion won, a high-class mansion, and 10 maids who will do whatever he wants. He was promised the highest conditions and pleasures, and yet, he stayed in Korea for months to the death, defending the 66th floor. Are they only concerned about some freak who just broke through to the 25th floor? They're just ungrateful bastards. Maybe he really should step aside and become a naturalized citizen? Clearing the 66th floor is hard enough as it is. The 60th floor is the beginning of the undead section. Creatures called specters appear on the 66th floor, in the form of ghosts whose mere presence makes a person tremble. They ignore physical attacks and only mental ones effective against them. It's a grave mistake to think these are the undead people know from ordinary fiction. Only those who have experienced the horrors of demonic energy can understand this. After one attempt, he has to rest for 3 days due to psychological trauma. With the help of an elixir, he can withstand the dark aura, and even the light attribute weapons he received as rewards in the tower. Even with all kinds of support, he barely survived each time. Clearing the 66th floor will be difficult for some time yet. He looked out the window and muttered that he must not just think but promote naturalization, and if he suddenly naturalizes in a foreign country, there will be chaos, right? The deadline for clearing the 66th floor of Korea has already passed the halfway point. In about 3 months, the countdown to the tower's collapse will begin. The only reliable one was he, Chol Min, the player. But even so, it was already too late, because by then he will no longer be in this Korea. Let them regret and despair, the ungrateful bastards. Meanwhile, a courier came to the protagonist and announced that his food had been delivered. 10 fried chickens, right? He replied that he'd ordered too much, sorry to bother you. He was so comfortable because this was a place where players lived together. The resident staff handled everything, from managing the hotel office to running small errands. Maids simply picked up linens, and if cleaning was needed, they even sent cleaners. The building had all the necessary amenities, restaurants where you could eat 3 times a day, coffee shops, a gym, dry cleaners, karaoke, and even a swimming pool. The 26th floor mission they just completed involved eliminating 20 swamp trolls. The second floor is known for being quite a difficult mission due to the swampy terrain. But thanks to this, everything went smoothly. He even caught one himself. He took the packages from the delivery and told Mr. Gur, Meat Shield, that he was offering him chicken. The guys were delighted when they saw this, and Juhyuk asked. He said there was chicken, so what were they looking at? It turned out they were looking at beautiful girls on the TV screen. It was a girl group on a 100-inch TV. Now he understood everything. After a while, the guys mistook it for food, and Korsak asked, "Are they going straight to the 27th floor tomorrow?" Juhyuk replied, "Yes, since they haven't started yet. He suggests they go straight to the 29th floor." He asked, "But why are they only going up to the 29th floor?" He replied that they would be clearing floors repeatedly for 10 days, and when the random summon cooldown ends, he planned to go to the 30th floor with a group of 4. He asked, "Are they choosing a new member?" He was looking forward to it. Meat Shield also shouted that there would be a new member, and everyone was happy, but he wondered if another rank would change his right-hand position. Thinking about the summoner's safety, he gritted his teeth, saying that would be better. After a while, Kwang-il brought the item he requested. It was volcanic skin armor, which had the effect of blocking cold and chills thanks to the sufficient heat of its fiery aura. He thanked Kwang-il for always caring for him. He replied that it wasn't worth the thanks. Their work provides support tailored to the tower's clearing by elite players. He replied, "Okay, when they use this, he'll return it." Kwang-il wished him luck with the 27th floor. When they arrived on that floor, it turned out that its people were known for their cold, but he wasn't cold at all. He asked Mr. Meat Shield, "Isn't he cold?" Meat Shield replied that the barbarian warrior does not feel the cold. He asked, "Mr. Korsak, are you really cold? Is he okay? Maybe they could take turns wearing the armor?" He replied icily that it was no problem. The cold was nothing with magical power. He could drive it away. He replied, "Okay," but realized that if he had any brains, Meat Shield would be a real rank. Korsak, so if he kept moving, he'd get better. He started jumping but couldn't move from the cold, and decided his team should start hunting immediately, then rushed into the forest. Juhyuk suggested that Korsak must have gone berserk because of the cold. It was so warm here, like under a blanket in the room, that he was too lazy to even move. After all, he had to catch at least one monster. He decided to keep up. Meat Shield followed him. As they rushed to clear the gate, the system reported they had successfully completed the mission, and their level had been raised. They didn't even have time to move before Korsak quickly completed it for them. They received all the rewards, and he was surprised. This simply couldn't be true. He hadn't even warmed up yet, but in any case, he finally received a piece of equipment. It was the tower-exclusive sacred sword of the paladin captain in the Kingdom of Roland. But wasn't it too worn? He didn't even know what was better here than his current mace. He'd have to find out the recycling price later. The system reported that the tower-exclusive sacred sword of the paladin captain in the kingdom increased attack power, sacred fire, unwavering spirit, and critical strike chance when fighting below. Limitations. This effect doesn't apply to enemies and undead, and its low durability requires repair after use. Its special feature is a faint glow that fills the sword and the user's body. MC held out the sword and asked, "Mr. Meat Shield, does he want to try this sword?" Meat Shield showed his fist and replied, "A barbarian warrior uses his fists." MC asked, "Mr. Korsak, does he need this too?" Korsak replied, "His equipment is wyvern skin armor and dwarven daggers. He only accepts first-class items." Juhyuk looked around and thought, it looks like selling is his only option. Should he go to the player store again? What a hassle. This is so old. He doesn't even know if anyone will buy it. He said, before he gets rid of it, he'll try swinging it at least once. Korsak wished him luck. MC rushed forward and shouted, "Well, here it goes." He began swinging the sword back and forth and shouting. He ran out of steam after just 2 swings. Korsak happily said, as expected of a Bong summoner, "This is amazing." Juhyuk wiped his forehead and said, and this despite the fact that he couldn't even lift it properly and was just swinging from side to side. Korsak said, "He did well, considering the circumstances. After all, physical abilities are limited outside the tower." MC asked, "And this limitation can't be lifted, right?" Korsak said, "It's possible. If the boundary between the outside world and the tower disappears, the limits will be lifted. If numerous towers on the ground collapse, this reality will become the same space as the tower, and then the limitations on the player's abilities will be unlocked. But this is the very sign of impending doom." Japanese embassy in Korea, Gwangwamun, Seoul. The man was talking on the phone and said, "This is good news. Really very good." The person on the other end of the call said, "However, he will have to pick it up himself. The wolves are watching the rabbit." The man pressed the reset button and said to tell him not to worry. He will figure everything out. Counselor Tomo, Japanese embassy in Korea. He chuckled and said, "A typhoon is coming soon." 2 days later, the system window reported the location, a black tower in Gangwon-do, South Korea. Floor 65 completed, current floor 66. MC thought he was nervous because Korsak mentioned that sign of doom last time. But as for conquering the higher floors, they have no choice but to rely on players like Yu Chol-min, right? Worrying won't solve anything. He just needs to keep climbing at his own pace, like he did before. He waved his hand and said, "Safety, safety." So following the 28th floor, today it's time to clear the 29th floor. The 28th floor, which they cleared yesterday, was a real challenge because of the jungle trolls attacking from the giant trees. Clearing to rank S+ would be difficult if Korsak were alone. But they have Meat Shield. If you remember how he dealt with those huge trees, if he were even a little smarter, he would be a real SSR. Korsak said a while ago, they're falling like chestnuts. He should watch out, MC thought. Korsak's spectacular finish was also good. However, the 29th floor, which they are clearing today. MC put on his mask and said, it won't end so easily. He thought, with such a disgusting name. Let them meet the plague troll. These guys wander everywhere, bleeding yellow pus and slime. There were even cases of players getting sick while clearing. He thought with disgust, he needs to prepare thoroughly. The system windows reported, John Korsak has been chosen for summoning. Meat Shield has been chosen for summoning. Korsak put his hand to his head and said, he serves with loyalty. SSR John Korsak at his service. Meat Shield said, he is here too. Juhyuk thought, no need to call yourself our Meat Shield. Okay, let's go to the 29th floor. The system window reported, entering the 29th floor of the Black Tower, Korea. The 29th floor's mission is to defeat 20 plague trolls. The time limit is 4 hours. MC asked, are the two of them sure they don't need masks? Meat Shield replied, warrior, don't get sick. Korsak replied, he's an SSR. Besides, it's hard to breathe and move in this. He appreciates his concern. Juhyuk replied, okay then. On the 29th floor, thanks to these two who don't care about diseases, his hunting speed seems to be even higher than on the 28th floor. The system window reported that he had successfully completed the 29th floor's mission. His level has increased. The reward is a 3-kilogram mana stone. Notification, he has achieved S+ clearing rank on the 29th floor of the Black Tower, Korea. The reward for S+ is a platinum badge. Korsak shouted, Summoner Bong, do they have a team dinner today too? MC asked to listen. He was truly sorry. Korsak asked again, why was he apologizing? MC waved his hand and said, cancel the draft. He is a traitor. He is a cruel employer. Let them curse him as much as they want and spit in his direction. But this is a new home. Plague pus will stain the new home. Mr. Meat Shield is huge. Too much has gotten on him. How can they get back together? Does that bird flying in the sky know what's going on in his soul? The next day, in the gym of the Awakened Affairs Administration Department, Nam Ga-eun, the number 2 player in Korea, dropped the barbell to the floor and fixed her hair. Her trait is a swordswoman. Current floor, the 62nd of the Black Tower, Korea. She thought, a dark zombie of the 62nd floor. The dark aura emanating from the monster absorbs and corrodes the player during the fight. At the moment, she sees no chance of victory. The 62nd floor, is this really his limit? Even so, as long as she follows the path of an elite player, she must try until her body breaks. She drank the protein supplement and thought happily. At times like these, a positive attitude is needed. She shouted, go ahead, go ahead. She looked out the window at the running people and shouted, Minna. She stopped and said, Goon, may she forgive her, but she is a little busy right now. Gyun asked, where is everyone rushing to? Did something happen? Minna asked again, hasn't she seen the news yet? Yu Chol-min is a traitor to the country. Gaun's eyes widened, and at that moment Chol-min said, the Korean Awakened Management Department only cares about politics and has completely abandoned the work of the elite team. The future of the Republic of Korea looked bleak. Therefore Yu Chol-min is leaving Korea from today and will compete as a Japanese player. MC widened his eyes and shouted, Yu Chol-min is getting Japanese citizenship, their best player? At the Awakened Affairs Administration Department, Kwang-il answered, that's right. The reason they urgently summoned Player Bong is this. Let him tell me how long it will take him to climb to the 60th floor? Juhyuk thought, as he had thought. He knew this would be brought up. He wondered why he had been summoned so suddenly. It's all because of the clearing. He was currently on the 29th floor. If he climbed one new floor every day, he would reach the 67th floor in 37 days. After all, there were about 90 days left until the deadline for clearing the 66th floor of the Black Tower. At first glance, it might seem feasible, but MC said it was impossible to do in 90 days. If he encountered a difficult section, he needed at least 10 days to prepare before climbing. Besides, the contract stated that the decision to conquer the upper floors was solely his. Kwang-il apologized. They just recently signed a contract, and his conscience doesn't allow him to ask for such a favor, but they are so desperate that they are ready to grasp at any straw. MC grabbed his head and mentally asked him not to make such a sad face. This is undermining his resolve. And yet, what is impossible is impossible. He can't promise what he is not sure of. Ga-eun ran into the room and shouted, Captain. He looked to the side and said, Player Nam Ga-eun. She spoke. She heard from Minna, that is, from Department Head Lee. The USA said that they will lend them items with the light attribute. Kwang-il said, they have not received a definitive answer yet. Now it is difficult to get items with the light attribute all over the world. Ga-eun looked at MC and asked, does he have a guest? He thought sheepishly. The beauty is interested in him. Kwang-il cried out, this person? Well, MC spoke sheepishly. He came by to sell some things. Kwang-il thought he got away with it well. Juhyuk said, by the way, he recently received something here. He thinks she's missing light attribute items. Doesn't she want to try this? He was told it was an improved version. Ga-eun asked in surprise, can she look at it for a minute? MC replied, yes, of course. Please let her look. She reached out to it, and the system window announced, the Holy Sword of the Paladin Captain of the Roland Kingdom, exclusive to the tower. Its effect is that when fighting the undead, attack power, holy fire, unwavering spirit, and critical strike chance are increased. A special feature of this is that a faint glow fills the sword in the user's body. Ga-eun thought, increased attack power against the undead and even an increased critical strike chance? Incredible. She'd never even heard of such effects. She threw herself on MC's shoulders, and Kwang-il asked in surprise, "Player Nam Ga-eun?" She asks only once. Please let him lend it to her. Please, she will do anything. Joo-hyuk had already imagined his wedding with Ga-eum and their vacation together. He asked, "Ga-eum, will they have a baby on their honeymoon?" She replied, she doesn't even know. He asked what they'll name the baby. Ga-eum replied, Bong, the sacred sword. The MC asked again, what kind of name is that? Ga-eum, she's such a jokester. Ga-eun said, Player Bong, the sacred sword. She. Joo-hyuk told her to stop joking. Let her come here. He'll kiss her. Ga-eun said, Player Bong, Player Bong. He came back to reality and froze, and Ga-eun happily asked, he just said he'd lend her the sacred sword, right? The MC thought, and didn't notice how he'd gotten lost in his fantasies. He grabbed his head and said, yes, of course, he'll definitely lend it to her. Let her tell him later if it's any good. Ga-eun happily shouted, thank you so much. Player Bong, if he ever needs anything, he can contact her anytime. Ga-eun said she'll do anything. She changed her clothes and said she'll go to the 62nd floor right now. Kwang-il told her to come back safe and sound. MC wondered if this would be useful to her. The review had to be good so it could be sold profitably, although he was going to get rid of it anyway, so he wouldn't be greedy. And how much could such an old sword be worth anyway? The system window reported, entrance to the Black Tower, Korea, 62nd floor. Physical characteristics increased according to level. Features and combat skills available for use. The 62nd floor quest is to defeat 20 dark zombies. Time limit, 15 hours. Completion condition, kill 20 dark zombies. Failure condition, death or abandoning the quest. Ga-eun thought, something that shouldn't be alive. Undead. She frowned and thought, no matter how many times she felt it, she would never get used to this paralyzing tension. This disgusting energy that makes you want to run away immediately. Still the same. The system window reported, the white glow of the sacred sword is activating. Ga-eun thought, the light is dimmer than she thought. The glow of the light attribute items she had been supplied with until now was much brighter. Will everything really be alright? The monster rushed towards her, and she thought, well, she has no choice but to check everything herself. To meet the enemy without running away. This is the destiny of the player. Ga-eun clenched her sword and struck the monster. Her eyes widened in surprise and thought, a dark aura is covering her. She fell to the ground and thought, her body has become heavy. Nothing has changed. The monster extended its hand to her, and she thought, a nightmare. The system window reported effect of the sacred sword, the activation of the skill Unwavering Mind. A bright glow spread around Ga-eun and she thought, what is it? It's the same. The system window reported, dealing critical damage to the dark zombie. Ga-eun wondered if the dark aura was neutralized. If so, she swung her weapon, and the system window reported that critical damage was dealt. This system window appeared several times, and the dark zombie was defeated. Ga-eun asked in surprise, so simple? At that moment, Kwang-il looked at his watch and thought, it's been 2 hours since she entered the 62nd floor. When Nam Ga-eun fails to clear the mission, she usually returns around this time. I wonder how she's doing now. At that moment, Ga-eun appeared in front of them and Kwang-il said, Player Nam Ga-eun, great job. She asked to wait a minute and let her drink a healing potion. MC thought she couldn't have cleared it that quickly. Did she really give up on the mission? Is it really impossible even with the holy sword? Ga-eun exhaled and Joo-hyuk said he was glad she came back in one piece. So, how did it go? Do she think this sacred sword is any use? If it's bad, she can tell him honestly. Before he could finish speaking, she threw herself into his arms. Bong Joo-hyuk, a complete system failure. A woman is hugging him? And it's not his mother? MC said no. Why? Such assertiveness. This is a problem. Fantasy mode was on, attending a parent-teacher meeting at elementary school. Ga-eun said, thank you. If it weren't for the sacred sword he borrowed, she definitely would have failed. Kwang-il asked, does that mean? Ga-eun said, clearing the 62nd floor was a success. Of course. We need to check to know for sure, but if all goes well. Joo-hyuk thought he passed out again? Ga-eun said, she thinks that with this sacred sword, it is possible to conquer even the 66th floor. Kwang-il cried out happily. Yes, he thought, what a relief. On the other hand, if player Bong had brought the sacred sword earlier and it had fallen into the hands of the treacherous Yu Chol-min, just imagine it. It would have been simply terrible. He remembered the news headline, Yu Chol-min embezzling all the support items from the management department and leaving for Japan. Kwang-il looked at MC and thought, this man named Bong Joo-hyuk. The more he learned about him, the more he was amazed. From S+ clearing records to items like this. Ga-eun let go of MC and fearfully asked for forgiveness. She was just so happy. Joo-hyuk said, it was a good life. She looked at him questioningly, and Kwang-il thought, could one person achieve such results alone? Ga-eun took out the sword and said, she did a great job with it, but the blade is damaged in many places. Joo-hyuk thought, it was already in poor condition, so I guess I'll just have to use it a few more times and throw it away. Kwang-il said it's fine. There are many skilled blacksmiths in the player's store workshop. If they ask for it, it will last a long time after being repaired. Ga-eun cried out happily. What a relief. Joo-hyuk asked, will the repair cost be high? Kwang-il replied, of course, their management department will cover the costs. MC asked, how about just buying it from him, since they're already doing it? They'll need it for further clearing of the 60 floors. Kwang Il answered thoughtfully. In his opinion, it would be better not to sell the sword. MC thought, it seems he doesn't intend to buy it. A pity. Kwang Il said, they'll rent it instead. Retaining ownership of the sword will be much more profitable for him financially. Besides Korea, there are hundreds of towers scattered all over the world. Few countries have already reached the 60th floor, but more and more will, and they will be able to lend the sword to these countries for 10 billion won per use. It's definitely worth a try according to the management department's statistics. MC lowered his head, and Kwang Il said, if he is not satisfied with something, please let him speak up anytime. Ju Hyuk shouted, isn't this just great? He gave 2 thumbs up and thought, the rental business, this is pure profit. Kwang Il said, then the management department will handle all the procedures for renting the sacred sword on his behalf. MC happily said, he would be very grateful. He will rent it to the management department for 1 billion, this time for free and starting from the 63rd floor. Kwang Il said, no, he doesn't have to at all. Ju Hyuk said, in the future he will receive a lot from other countries. Just let them advertise it well to the whole world. Kwang Il said, thank you. Thank him so much. After a while the MC was cooking and was happy. What? 10 million for one rent? I can't even believe it. You could say the owner of the sacred sword is cooler than any landlord. The item he just wanted to get rid of turned into a gold mine. Seriously. Ji Hyuk said, they are having a hot pot today. Let them eat as much as they want. Korsak happily said, Summoner Bong made this personally for him. Meat Shield cried and said, only a summoner treats him so well. Korsak wished them bon appetit. The MC smiled and told them to eat more. They can eat at least 1 million won's worth of pork. He flashed them his capitalist smile and thought, thanks to them guys, he's rich now. That evening, breaking news blew up all the media in Korea. The clearing of the 62nd floor was a success. Body camera footage has been released. The reason for the success has been revealed. The sacred sword, an item with a divine attribute. Player Nongan becomes a new hope, expressing confidence in clearing the 66th floor. And so, thanks to his, Bong Joon-hyuk's efforts, Korea's crisis has turned into new opportunities. 10 days later, the MC thought, for the last 10 days, he's been doing nothing but clearing the 28th floor, skipping the plague trolls of the 29th floor. And now, the long-awaited random summon is available again. He diligently washed himself in the bathhouse, trimmed his fingernails and toenails, changed into new clothes, and completely emptied his stomach, having fasted since yesterday. Joo-hyuk sat on the floor and thought he was terribly hungry. He suggested finishing quickly and eating. And finally, he put on purified water. Since it was water from the cooler, it was technically purified water. The MC folded his hands, and the system window announced, random summon cooldown, 29 minutes remaining. Joo-hyuk prayed for LSSR. Only LSSR. Only Legend Special Super Rare. Korsak told him not to worry so much, everything will be fine. MC turned around and asked, what's wrong with Mr. Meatshield? Thanks to him, they cleared so many floors to rank S+. Korsak replied, no. He just wanted to calm down Bong's summoner. He looked at the satisfied Meatshield and said, is he an idiot? Going to smile like that again? MC said, okay, calm down. He needs to focus. It's time. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Joo-hyuk shouted, a random summon. He thought, please, let it be a good rank. A bright glow and a silhouette appeared in front of him. The girl crouched down and thanked him for her summoning. This maiden, Jeondalrae, she humbly greets young Master Bong. The guys froze in surprise, and MC asked, a woman? Korsak answered, it is a woman. Joo-hyuk asked, what should they do? Korsak asked, what should he do? Jeondalrae summoned a weapon and said, even though she is inept, she swears to dedicate all her strength to serving him. Master Bong. MC thought, sword, bells, is she a shaman? Jeondalrae thrust her sword forward and screamed, he's an idiot. What's with that look? How dare he gaze at a maiden's body with such lustful eyes? He needs a good spanking to bring him to his senses. Korsak asked, puzzled. He was just looking because he was curious. Jeondalrae screamed, silence. How dare he lie so shamelessly? Let him consider this a warning. If he dares to harbor dark thoughts while looking at her beauty, he will not escape God's punishment. MC asked to excuse him and wait. Jeondalrae turned around and said, he can look as long as he wants, Lord. Please let him sit back and admire. Joo-hyuk wondered if there really wasn't a normal character option for his summons. And yet, her rank is a whole S. This is an absolute victory. She's on the same level as Korsak after her rank promotion. But is there a hierarchy even among S ranks? Their chemistry is simply something else. The system window reported that Jeondalrae is the stern, majestic, and serious High Shaman of the Celestial Empire Temple. Her rank is S, and her class is Shaman. MC thought, stern, majestic, the very embodiment of seriousness. Did the ritual with the bowl of pure water and the pleas of he begs really affect the result of the summoning? He enters the memories of his new summon, Jeondalrae. He transported to the temple and wondered, where is he? Jeondalrae, the daughter of Mujeon, the emperor of the Celestial Empire. Fascinated by shamanism, the state religion of the Celestial Empire, since childhood, the princess became the shaman of the imperial temple. After the death of her father, Emperor Mujeong, her younger brother ascended the throne, but he was soon assassinated by their uncle who usurped the imperial crown. Death for death. In anger, she swore cruel revenge and performed the ritual of the death curse. Jeondalrae's uncle also used all his power and resources to prepare for his niece's revenge, planting all sorts of magical barriers throughout the palace, and even preparing a scapegoat to bear the death curse in his place. However, having served the supreme deity of the heavenly empire since childhood, she was the greatest shaman of her generation. Gyondalre screamed, "Death curse!" She attacked her uncle, who cried out loudly. Nothing could stop her power. However, using the death curse for personal vengeance goes against the will of heaven. She succeeded in getting her revenge, but evil remains evil, even if done in the name of good. For successfully casting the death curse, she had to pay with her own life. MC paused, a charisma that belied her appearance, and an extremely serious nature. Looking at Gyondalre's past life, everything becomes clear. A bitter aftertaste remains. He said he wanted to ask something. Gyondalre replied, "It is a great honor for her, young master. Please, let him ask anything without hesitation." Juhyuk asked what was the name of the one who founded the heavenly empire. Gyondalre replied, "The great emperor Jeonwon. He was a majestic figure. He defeated the evil Wang and Kim clans, expanded their domain to the lands of ancient Goryeo, and changed the country's name from Baekje to the heavenly empire." Juhyuk froze and asked to wait. Was this the same Gyeonhwan, the founder of late Baekje? Gyondalre replied, "Exactly." Juhyuk thought, this is a parallel universe. In the world of Gyondalre, it was late Baekje, not Goryeo, that united the later three kingdoms. Korsak also mentioned that he and his previous summoner were in a place similar to modern Earth. He listened further, and the history before the Celestial Empire was exactly the same as he knew it. The branches of history definitely diverged, starting from the period of the later three kingdoms. This is amazing. Since she is from the royal family, her charisma is definitely not an empty phrase. He has been fasting since yesterday for the sake of the summoning. He smiled and asked, "Since they are all gathered here, would they like to eat ramen?" Korsak replied, "He does not mind, just not spicy, please." Meat Shield said, "He has ramen too." MC asked, "Is she Lady Gyondalre?" She replied, "Being picky about food is against the rules of etiquette." Korsak said, "Summoner Bong makes the best ramen." Meat Shield said, "He is already looking forward to it." MC told them to wait a bit. He'll have everything ready in a jiffy. Now where was that big pot? Gyondalre got angry and shouted, "You rude people. How dare they be so insolent for simple summons? They deserve a severe spanking. How can they just sit and let the young master cook for himself?" She ordered them to get up quickly. MC looked up at her and thought she scared him. Korsak asked if she was being too presumptuous when they were both SSRs. Gyondalre smirked and said, "She can see he's a fool who doesn't even know his place." She wanted to limit herself to just a scolding, but it looks like she'll have to curse him to knock some sense into him. Korsak shouted, "Curse? He hates this. He asked to wait. He made ramen right now." Gyondalre called Meat Shield an idiot and said that he did too. MC watched the boys quickly run to help and thought, a mad assassin and a barbarian warrior, even these guys who despise death are afraid of something. He asked if they wanted to go to the tower together after eating. Gyondalre replied, "She will serve him with the utmost loyalty. He only needs to give the order." MC replied, "Okay, coming." The system window announced the entrance to the 30th floor of the Korean Black Tower. MC smiled and thought, on second thought, Gyondalre's presence had its advantages. Since she keeps Korsak in check, maybe. He imagined Korsak asking the summoner to stay there. Gyondalre screamed, "Insolent idiot. Does he have no manners at all?" Korsak told the summoner to hunt as much as he wanted. Juhyuk thought happily, then maybe he should aim for 10 of them to start. He asked, "Is everyone ready?" Korsak replied, "Loyalty. Safety first. He'll kill them all." Meat Shield said he'll do anything. Protect the summoner, even if he dies. Gyondalre sighed and said she thought they were lowbrows with no etiquette, but it seems their hearts are in the right place. Korsak adjusted his hair and said with a smile, "That's true." MC wondered if she'd already established her own rules here. The system window reported a mission for the 30th floor. Defeat 80 trolls of any type and one two-headed troll. Time limit, 13 hours. Clearing requirement, 80 of all troll types and one two-headed troll. MC looked at Gyondalre and wondered how a shaman participates in combat. Judging by her past, most likely through curses. Would she really cast a deadly curse on the monsters? Gyondalre created an item, and Juhyuk wondered if it was a portable speaker. Gyondalre turned around and said, "This is a little embarrassing. She usually needs a drummer to keep the rhythm, but since she's traveling alone, she prepared this as a last resort." MC told her to do as she pleases. No need to strain yourself. Gyondalre replied, "Then she'll begin." The monsters roared loudly, and Korsak and Meat Shield rushed into battle. Gyondalre turned on the speaker, causing the boys to widen their eyes in surprise. Gyondalre raised her sword and said, "May the blessings of the gods of heaven and earth be upon young Master Bong. So shall they, evil spirits, come forth." MC wondered, a shamanic ritual inside the Black Tower? Her amulet glowed, and a bright light spread in all directions. Juhyuk covered his face with his hands and thought, "Is this it? Meat Shield is getting bigger?" The monsters rushed at him and began to attack, and Meat Shield said, the barbarian warrior's skin became as hard as metal. He had a surge of power and hit the monsters. MC screamed, "This is incredible." Korsak attacked the monsters after him and shouted joyfully, "This is just super." Heightened senses. MC looked at his fists and thought, he thought she was a character with debuffs, but she can also buff. On top of that, the trolls noticeably slowed down. Buffs and debuffs applied at the same time. He had never heard of anything like this. His fighting spirit is boiling. He can't hold it in. He feels like he is capable of anything right now. Okay, the alpha male comes into play. Suddenly, he stopped and turned around. Gyondalre grabbed his shirt and said, "It's better to leave the battle to his subordinates. He just needs to watch calmly, sir." He thought, he has a bad feeling about this. MC said, He'll just kill a couple and bring them back. Hyundalre asked why he wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with lesser beings. MC answered, but he is also lesser. He is a beta male. Hyundalre said, this is completely unthinkable. He thought, so he will not catch anyone again. Juhyuk screamed, that is an order. Let him go, quickly. Hyundalre said, no, he must not. MC thought, yeah, a nightmare. This is how it will end. Well, at least one. Let them give him at least one. The system window reported, all types of trolls, 80 of them and the two-headed troll, were defeated. One successfully completed the 30th floor mission. His level increased. Juhyuk grabbed his shirt with his teeth and screamed, and this time he couldn't catch a single one. Hyundalre said, no sir. He screamed. He should have just shaken her off and gone into battle. It didn't matter whether she yelled at him or not. He looked questioningly at Hyundalre, who burst into tears. He wondered if she was crying, when absolute obedience collides with the third point of the three principles of summoning. Was Hyundalre really reacting like this? And yet, seeing SSR cry like this was simple. MC apologized, and Hyundalre said she was just so afraid of losing him. Why does she always lose everyone she cares about? Even if he disappears, young master. MC widened his eyes and thought, isn't he an idiot? She lost her father at such a young age. She was betrayed by the uncle she trusted, and she had to witness the death of her younger brother. What did she feel? Casting a killing curse for revenge, knowing it would cost her life, loneliness, fear, and despair. A girl who lost everyone she cared about in the past. Summoners aren't just tools to be judged by their rank. They are people who have feelings and intelligence. Maybe her usual sternness is just a mask hiding her vulnerability. MC patted her head and asked her not to worry. He won't go to any dangerous places, he promises. Hyundalre cried and said, it's a great honor for her, Lord. Corsac ran to his side and shouted loudly, Summoner Bong, the mission is accomplished in style. Wait, why didn't he participate in the hunt today? He ran closer and said, never mind. Why is the princess crying? Did he scold her for being rude to him? Summoner Bong? MC replied, there you go. Besides, he himself should be scolded for the way he interacts with Meat Shield. Corsac said, that's cruel. Then he will cry too. Hyundalre screamed in irritation, he's an idiot. How dare he approach the Lord all covered in demon blood? Get out of here. Corsac said, okay, he gets it. Just let her put those bells away. The system window reported, exiting the Black Tower. They all moved and Juhyuk said, they all did a great job. Let's go rest. The system window reported, accumulating 30 platinum badges gives a bonus. Juhyuk smiled and thought, what is it this time? The system window reported, a bonus, a ticket to reset the cooldown of an item, a skill. It was sent to his exclusive tower inventory. MC was surprised and thought, a cooldown reset? This is a divine tier item that will allow him to use random summons again right now. Maybe he should use it right now? No. It would be wasteful to use it now when they already have more than enough firepower. Hyundalre widened her eyes and said, tea ceremony etiquette is. MC thought, he'll save it for a situation where his back is really against the wall. He smiled and thought, although on the other hand, will he even need it? Sometime later, the news reported that Namga-eun from South Korea had successfully conquered the 63rd floor, following her success on the 62nd. Kyung-soo suggested watching the footage. As seen in Namga-eun's recording, a divine attribute item, the sacred sword, was the key to defeating the undead. As long as the dark aura could be neutralized, the undead were no different from ordinary monsters. Director Park, with the deadline for clearing the 66th floor approaching, the public was concerned about Yu Chol-min's acceptance of Japanese citizenship. He sat on the couch and watched the news. Someone asked if they had a plan to resolve this issue. Kyung-soo replied that he knew people were worried, so he would make one promise today. They would conquer the 66th floor within a month. In addition, they plan to launch a global sacred sword rental business. But he has to state that they will not rent this out to any country associated with the player Yu Chol-min. Chol-min got angry and yelled, they are idiots. He threw a glass at the TV, then stood up and started kicking it. He yelled loudly, if they had such an item, they should have given it to him from the start. Then, he would have already passed all the floors. At that moment, the man asked, Yu Sang, is he there? He'll just come in for a second. He went inside and asked, what the hell? Did something happen? Cheol-min replied, nothing special. What does he need? He clearly said that he was going to rest for now. The man replied, yes. When was he planning on passing the 57th floor? Cheol-min looked at him puzzled and asked, didn't he say that he could take his time with the 57th floor? The man said, well, it's not exactly his fault, but Japan is in such a situation right now that they can't even borrow the sacred sword. The higher-ups demand that the walkthroughs happen as soon as possible. He's sure he understands it himself. Cheol-min said, okay. He'll walk through the 57th floor tomorrow. The man said happily, Prime Minister Kawaguchi will definitely be pleased. And while we're at it, how about appearing live on TV? That will instantly silence the dissatisfied people across the country. Cheol-min said, okay, he'll do that. The man went to the exit and said, and he'll replace this broken TV with a new one. Let him rest. Cheol-min got angry and said, both Korea and Japan really know how to piss him off. The sacred sword. What idiot found that? If he ever catches it? At that moment, the MC was looking at the screen of his phone, where the intro of the video about Ga-eun and the sacred sword was visible. He read the comments and said happily, he's even blushing from how much everyone is talking about him. The conscripts were standing behind him and Juhyuk turned around and said, they've arrived. He opened the door and the delivery guy asked, he ordered 10 buckets, right? It's heavy since it's so much. Should he help him carry it inside? Juhyuk replied, no, it's okay. He can do it himself. He thought with tears in his eyes. He just bought 10 buckets of the most elite ice cream that he used to just stare at every time he went to the store. Soon, 1,000,000,000 will hit his bank account, so this is all nothing. He really stepped up, Bong Juhyuk. And one more thing has changed since Gyandalre joined. The conscripts won't touch the food until he takes the first bite. He tried it and said, okay. He started eating, let them get started. Meat Shield tried the ice cream and said, sweet, his tongue melts. Corsac said, if his tongue melts, he will die. Idiot! This is the best, very delicious. Gyandalre said, the behavior of this low-born rabble is truly beyond vulgarity. Someone who knows etiquette should be able to control their emotions, no matter how excited they are. Corsac suggested they just eat in peace. He was about to vomit from being so tedious, and he really didn't want to part with such a delicacy. Gyandalre tried the ice cream, and her eyes widened in admiration. This is amazing. Corsac pointed his finger at her and shouted, what? What was that face just now? It was vulgar. He saw everything. Gyandalre cleared her throat and said, her lips truly blissful. She had never tasted anything so sweet, even in the Imperial Palace. MC said, the princess is changing the subject. Gyandalre said, young Master Bong's gift of ice cream deeply touched the maiden's heart. Juhyuk smiled and said, next time he'll buy her more. He thought, it seems even the princess finds ice cream delicious. Gyandalre turned around and said, in that case, before her summoning ends, she would like to perform a ritual to bring him good luck or ward off misfortune. Is there something troubling his mind right now, young master? Corsac said, there is something. Gyandalre asked, what? Let him tell her more. Corsac replied, there's this idiot named Yu Chol-min. So, this guy, does she understand? He started talking about him, and after a while, Gyandalre screamed, what? How can someone be such a scoundrel? One who possesses great power must dedicate themselves to the safety of the people and the nation. How dare he endanger his homeland and go over to the enemy's side? This is completely unthinkable. She will not let this go. She will do everything to make him pay. Corsac said, spoken like a true princess. She is absolutely right. He agrees with her. Gyandalre asked, young master, could he please get the item that Yu Chol-min once used? MC told her to forget about it. He was Japanese now. He suggested she stay out of it. Gyandalre screamed, what? He'd abandoned his humanity. If they left such a man alone, injustice would prevail. Juhyuk said he understood her feelings, but casting a death curse has a backlash. He absolutely refuses to let her suffer just to take out a jerk like him, Gyandalre. Corsac said, as expected of a Bong summoner, he completely agrees with him too. Compassionate, wise, he's simply the best. MC asked, is he a suck-up? Gyandalre said she was shocked by the young master's concern. However, what she will cast is not a death curse. MC said, if it's not a death curse, then, Gyandalre said, it's a karma ritual. Juhyuk asked again, karma? Gyandalre replied, by casting karma, he will receive the consequences of his actions much sooner. Whether he experiences fortune or misfortune will depend on the deeds he has committed. His fortune or misfortune will simply be determined by the laws of the universe. Let him rest assured, no harm will come to her. MC thought, he understood. In that case, why not? After a while, Corsac said, loyalty. He returned. MC asked, did he succeed? Corsac showed him the remote control and said, this is the remote control that the traitor used. Juhyuk asked to wait. He didn't get caught, right? Corsac pointed at himself and said, he's SSR. Does he remember? MC replied, yes, that's great work. Getting the item that Yu Chol-min used wasn't difficult. He easily found out his address through team leader Lee. It turns out that he left all the furniture and things behind in a hurry to escape. Gyandalre said, now she will begin the karma ritual. She cut her hand, and Juhyuk thought fearfully, her finger. Gyandalre said, gods of heaven and earth, let them look upon their servant. What he sowed, let him reap. What he built, let him receive. If his karma is as big as a mountain, then let that mountain collapse today. If it is as deep as a river, then let it overflow today. Let them weigh his deeds on the scales of the universe. The remote control was covered in mana and fell to the floor. Gyandalre said, it's over. Now they leave it to the judgment of heaven. If his sins are light, a modest misfortune will find him. After a while, Chol-min walked through the hall, and the host said, thank you everyone for waiting. Their special guest for today is the greatest player in Japan. Gyandalre said, if his sins are heavy, a great misfortune will find him. The host asked to welcome Yu Chol-min. Thunderous applause. Nyoko-san will be translating for them today. Yu-san, thank you very much for agreeing to this interview. Chol-min said, no need for thanks. Someone asked if he heard that he plans to clear the 57th floor today. But isn't there still plenty of time left before the deadline? Chol-min laughed and said, it's true. There's no rush at all. However, he wanted to give hope to their citizens, who were downhearted due to recent events. Someone said how noble of him. As a Japanese citizen, he is very pleased to hear that. But Chol-min, first of all, please let him think about his own safety. As he knows, before he naturalized, Japan suffered a tragedy, losing its best player. Chol-min said not to worry about it. When he was only level 57, he cleared it in 8 hours. And now he's level 66, so 5 hours. He'll cut the record to 5 hours. As long as he's here, Japan is safe, and he'll prove it to them right now. He went. The system window reported, entrance to the Black Tower, 57th floor. Physical characteristics increased according to level. Features and combat skills available. Chol-min looked at this and said, it's been a while since he's been here. The system window reported, the 57th floor mission required defeating 15 fire wyverns. The time limit was 14 hours. Failure conditions included death or abandoning the mission. Wyverns were monsters that hunted ogres. Essentially, they were the kings of the skies, second only to dragons. Chillman thought about it, but he'd already learned all the patterns of the 57th floor through countless clearings. It would be strange if he somehow failed. He said, okay, he'd get started. He turned around and wondered what just happened. A sudden chill washed over him. Was he feeling unwell? He needed to finish this quickly and go rest. Clearing the tower was essentially a solo game, so the key to success was one-on-one combat. Even at a high level, it was dangerous to be surrounded by a crowd of giant monsters. He fired at a wyvern and thought, so he'd pick off lone wyverns and take them out one by one. If he were an archer, he would try to quickly close the distance when a monster approached. But he is a master of any weapon. If they get close, he will simply switch to close combat and finish them off. In the meantime, he will rain down as many arrows on them as he can. He shot at another monster and thought, will the arrows ricochet? Chillman said, damn. His timing was perfect. The wyverns screamed, and Chillman thought, it's hard, but he can still handle two at once. After a while, he killed the monsters and thought, what's wrong with him today? How was it possible not to land a single critical hit while killing those two? He took out the crossbow again and said, no more mistakes. Let him focus. He sneezed loudly and fired. The arrow hit the wing of one of the wyverns, and Chillman thought, this is crazy. He can't handle three at once. If he leaves the tower now, he will immediately end up in that live broadcast. Refusal is out of the question. The wyverns released a fiery breath towards him, which greatly surprised him. He thought that wyverns rarely use breath because they are too heavily burdened, and yet 3 of them are firing at once? No time to calculate the cooldown. He is using all the ultimate and finishing moves he has. The monster screamed loudly, and Chillman looked up and thought, he was incredibly unlucky at first, but in the end, everything worked out well. Thanks to the fact that they attacked in a crowd, he cleared almost 5 of them in an hour. One more strike, and this monster will be finished. If he sets a new record around 4 hours, it will be a big headline. At that moment, the wyvern screamed loudly, and Chillman asked, is it trying to resist anyway? There's no way such a weak attack will hit it. He thought, this is a typical situation. There is no room for error. He will dodge to the side and finish it all with a counterattack. The monster snapped its jaw next to him, and he pushed off the ground and heard a crunch. He turned around and saw that he had stepped on the monster's eggs. Chillman's eyes widened in fear and thought, what are the odds that a wyvern, which nests only at heights, would lay an egg on the ground? What are the odds of stepping on that particular egg just before something hatches from it? What are the odds that a nearby flock of wyverns will hear the cries of a hatchling? And what are the odds of not landing a single critical hit for an entire hour of hunting? Chillman screamed. Damn it. He started running and screamed, how is this possible? He thought, it's better to be disgraced than to die. He ran out of the portal and the system window reported. He declared mission abandonment. Mission failed. Exit the dungeon map. He came out and saw fangirls in front of him, joyfully shouting that he was their hero. He never falls. Chillman was spotted on stage, and the girls looked at him in fear. He quickly grabbed the potion and started drinking it. The man said, Chillman is back. Friends, please give him a round of applause. There was still so much time left. How did he manage to do it so quickly? He started to leave and loudly told them all off. The girls asked, what? The breaking news headlines were all about Chillman's disgrace. Chillman secretly attempted to clear the floor again 2 days later. Sources report another failure. He sat on the couch and screamed loudly. In the comments, many thanked Japan for letting them take down Chillman. South Korea clears the Black Tower with its 31st consecutive S++ rank. Player Namga-eun clears the 64th floor, a dark cave. The clearing was completed in just 3 hours. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security building. A voice rang out, do they want to rent a sacred sword? Yes, player Gerald is constantly pestering them. He really wants to try it. His kleptomania has flared up again. The man said that since this is the only item with a divine attribute found so far, he wants to test it. The manager said there is still plenty of time for the 67th floor. What is the rush? The man said that he wants to clear the 66th floor again. Macmillan, the Minister of Homeland Security, said that then let him rent it. He will make an official request through diplomatic channels. Antonio, the director of tower operations, responded that the Japanese Prime Minister's office had also contacted them. Macmillan asked about what it was about. Antonio replied that it was an informal request for the temporary naturalization of one of their DHS players. Macmillan said that it seemed the player they naturalized did not live up to expectations. Antonio said, this isn't just a temporary difficulty. The situation seems critical. Macmillan said to tell them that temporary naturalization is more than possible. Antonio asked again, but under what conditions? Macmillan took out a pen and said they were desperate, which meant they'd agree to anything. They could cover the cost of renting the sacred sword with what they took from Japan. Let him convey to Japan that they'll drag out the negotiations until the very last moment. When they're on the brink of extinction, they'll be able to squeeze even more out of them. They said so on the news, and now there's news from abroad. Chillman is afraid to go outside because of public anger in Japan. MC said in surprise, It seems karma has really hit him hard. Will this last forever? Gyondalre said, it's a pity for him. Of course, it won't be forever. Once the karmic balance is restored, everything will return to normal. MC thought he even felt a little sorry for him, but considering his media machinations, appropriating objects and so on, well, it's all his own karma, so he's the one to deal with it. Juhyuk asked, is it their turn to clear the 32nd floor today, right? Corsac started to stretch and said, he serves with loyalty. He was just a little stiff. Meat Shield said, a warrior to catch everyone. Gyondalre said, she's always ready. MC sighed and said, before they go in, Princess Gyondalre, they need to talk alone. After a while, she grabbed her mouth and asked, is this it? She saw ice cream and Corsac screamed, Summoner Bong, this is it? Isn't this the best flavor of the month from the top 5 among all 30 types? MC thought, how did he even know this? He asked to put it down and go to his room for a minute. Corsac asked, is he going to eat this together, Lord? Juhyuk said, no, he will buy them something delicious later too. Corsac asked with tears in his eyes, wasn't his loyalty enough, Lord? Meat Shield said, the warrior will try harder. Corsac said, this wounded heart cannot be healed, sir. Juhyuk said, he will buy them beef. The guys left the room, and Gyondalre said, she was deeply touched by the young master's concern. Young Master Bong, a nobleman capable of ruling the world. She reached for the ice cream, and MC blocked her way and ordered her to stop. She thinks it's normal that such a great lord won't catch a single monster. He will kill exactly 5 on each floor. Gyondalre reached for the spoon and said, then at least 1. MC cried out, okay, they will settle on 3. A deal. Gyondalre said, okay. The system window reported, entrance to the 32nd floor of the Korean Black Tower. Mission for the 32nd floor, defeat 22nd stage Minotaurs. Minotaurs appear from the 31st to the 35th floor. The peculiarity is that the monster types and the tower's surroundings are absolutely identical. Perhaps because this is a zone of large monsters, they are getting larger and larger. The Minotaur King is about 6 meters tall, and Meat Shield is 3 meters. They are all bigger than Meat Shield, and the Minotaur King on the 35th floor is said to be 6 meters. On this floor, they have a second stage, a 4-meter Minotaur. His overwhelming presence in person is no joke. MC thought he had such a hard time convincing the princess. It would be foolish to retreat now, right? At that moment, Gyondalre swung her sword and directed her mana towards the monster. Gyondalre's buffs and debuffs. Meat Shield is already clearing everything around. Corsac is ready to intervene at any moment. MC thought, yes, it would be strange if he couldn't handle such support. He struck the monster, which screamed loudly. He swung and struck again. Juhyuk thought, learned through repeated clearing, primordial thunder staff, final, 3rd form, flash of falling thunder. As the name suggests, this is an incredibly fast move. Its power is as great as its speed, so the feeling is simply amazing. It was a little scary, but he was able to kill 3 without a problem, and the strengthened Meat Shield and Corsac quickly finished off the rest. The system window reported a notification. He received the S++ clearing rank on the 32nd floor of the Korean Black Tower. The reward for the S++ rank, he is awarded a platinum badge. The next day, Gan returned to the hall, and Mina said, well done, Gan. She wiped her forehead and said, the 65th floor was a bit tough. Mina said, she can always try again, so don't overexert herself. Gaon smiled and said she said it was hard, but she didn't say she failed. Mina asked, so clearing? Gaon smiled and said, of course it's a success. Cleared in 6 hours. She'll begin clearing the 66th floor in 3 days as planned. The atmosphere in Korea after Yu Chul-min's failure wasn't so bad, but that didn't mean public anxiety had completely disappeared. After much debate, the National Assembly decided to clear the 66th floor ahead of schedule to buy half a year. Kwang Il said, in those 6 months, Player Bong will definitely reach the 60th floors. Mina said, but Captain, what if the sacred sword doesn't hold up by then? Thanks to their masters, it won't take long. But there's still cause for concern. Kwang Il laughed and said, even someone like Yu Chul-min reached the 65th floor without the sacred sword. Gerald Watson from the United States reached the 66th floor. Does she think Player Bong's talent is inferior to theirs in any way? Mina said, absolutely not. Kwang Il said, this man, he's a real anomaly, to the point that they wouldn't have to worry even if the sacred sword broke. First of all, he holds an unprecedented record of 32 consecutive S++ rank clears. Mina said, he's wrong about that. Kwang Il asked, why? Mina said, the data just updated. Now it's a record of 33 consecutive S+ rank clears. In any case, the fact that he's an anomaly has become even more obvious. At this moment, MC looked at the talisman in surprise and asked, that thing hides identity? Gyondalre replied, exactly. People will see them as people, but they won't be able to tell who they really are. In their eyes, the owner will be just an ordinary passerby. Juhyuk thought, with this talisman, his summons, who only know house and tower, will be able to walk outside with him. He saw the notification of receipt of funds and thought, Namgun said that she was going to the 65th floor. He lent it to the department for free for the 62nd floor. Since then, they have gone 3 floors up to the 65th floor. He has already earned a lot. The day will come when he can properly brag about it. But for now, dinner with his recruits comes first. After a while, the MC and his recruits were walking down the street. The girl looked at them questioningly, and Juhyuk thought she was staring at Meat Shield. She said, "Cutie." The MC was puzzled, thought, did she just call Meat Shield cutie? I wonder how she sees him. Anyway, since no one is scared of a 3-meter giant, it means the effect is definitely working. He said, so since they all worked so hard yesterday on the 32nd floor and today on the 33rd, they can go destroy some beef. The guys shouted happily, expensive meat. They will eat carefully, sir. Juhyuk told them to order as much as they could eat. Korsak asked, even considering Meat Shield, sir? MC told him not to worry. He's treating. Korsak happily said, excellent. He trusts only him. Summoner Bong. The next day, Korsak asked, did he call Summoner? Energy is bubbling. Gyandalre said, she repaid his favor with all her soul. Meat Shield said the meat destroyer is here. Korsak asked, so how much did last night's dinner cost them, sir? Juhyuk asked him not to ask. He thought there was no point in saying it was 12 million won. He asked, so if they want to eat beef again, they need to work, right? Korsak said, he serves with loyalty. The system window reported, entrance to the 34th floor. Mission, defeat 24th stage minotaurs. The size of the 4th stage minotaur is approaching 6 meters. MC looked at the monster and thought, it's awfully big. Maybe he should focus his attacks on the lower body, and then finish it off when it falls? Korsak asked. Summoner Bong, is the cow's head too big, Lord? MC replied, yes, he thinks he's reached his limit. Korsak smiled and replied, no need to worry, he's SSR class. He'll handle everything for him, Lord. In return, let him promise to catch only one. Juhyuk replied, okay, he'll catch only one. Korsak said, quick decision. That's great work, Lord. Meat Shield, he needs to work off his beef. Does he understand? He's eaten more than everyone else. It's not hard. Let him interlace his fingers. Meat Shield replied, he'll do it. Korsak looked at him and said, no, that's not it. That's how it is, kid. Meat Shield assumed the pose. Korsak asked, and Juhyuk asked, does he step on his hands and jump up? Korsak replied, Meat Shield will throw him straight up. MC thought, he's a genius. He said, they're starting Meat Shield. He can handle it, right? Meat Shield said, throw the summoner up. Juhyuk stepped on his foot and he threw him high into the air. MC turned around and thought fearfully, why isn't he stopping? How high did he fly? Horrible. He's done for. He flew down and tried to calm himself down. He has summoners, so they will save him, right? He flew down and thought, shadow step. Sometimes when he fell into a trance, it seemed to him that he was walking on air, as if they attached jet engines to his feet, like in the movies. He needs to imagine it, how he feels some kind of energy in his feet. It's mana. The system window reported, skill, shadow step. MC laughed joyfully and thought, he can walk on air. He headed down, and Gyandalre said, to think that she would see Skystep in such a place. Meat Shield said, the summoner is walking, right in the sky. Korsak said, he sees it too. He thought, shadow step right in the air? He remembered how a while ago he was lying down, and the guy asked, Korsak, did he know, if he maxed out shadow step, he would be able to walk in the sky? Korsak asked again, boss, who is he trying to fool? He thought, so it was possible after all. He smiled and said, their summoner Bong has incredible talent. MC thought, but it's too fast. Will he even be able to aim properly? He has no choice but to try. The system window reported, staff of primordial lightning, third form, a flash of lightning. He attacked the monster and thought, he managed to land thanks to the recoil from the attack. Did he just wet himself? Korsak screamed, that was amazing. What a dazzling talent. Even he can't do that. Meat Shield said, the summoner should receive the title of warrior. Gyandalre said, she is simply in admiration of the young master's talent. Please, she begs him, let him take care of himself. Korsak said, she's right. His hair stood on end with excitement. MC said, to be honest, he himself was a little confused, but he was glad that everything worked out. They will quickly deal with the rest. The system window reported, the mission on the 34th floor is completed. Level increased. Reward, 3.5 kilograms of mana stones. Reward, summoning rank increase rune. MC looked at this in surprise and thought, a summoning rank increase rune as a regular reward? And this is not even a special bonus? He was incredibly lucky. The system window reported he will receive an S++ clearing rank on the 34th floor. The reward for rank S+, a platinum badge was issued. Now he can challenge the 35th floor. Exit the tower. He said, great job, everyone did well. Mr. Korsak. He put his hand to his lips and whispered, if he uses the summoning rank increase rune, will SSR be able to rise to LSSR? Korsak replied, no chance. Rune rank ups are only possible up to SSR. MC thought, I see. Meat Shield asked, are they eating outside today too? The warrior likes Korean barbecue. Korsak said, he's a tactless idiot. Does he even know how much Summoner Bong spent on that dinner? Gyandalre said, no matter how well a servant works, the master won't keep one whose belly is a bottomless pit. Meat Shield said, he'll eat less from now on. Korsak punched him in the head and said, this is ridiculous. He'll probably eat 100 servings by himself again. He needs to learn self-control. MC thought, it looks like he's in more pain now than during the tower clearing. Poor Meat Shield. He can't leave it like this. He handed him a stone and said, Master Barbarian Warrior, let him take this. Meat Shield looked up at him and said, the warrior can endure hunger. The warrior isn't eating. He still has strength. He saw a bright light, and MC said, this rank up rune is for him, Mr. Meat Shield. Let him take it. Meat Shield burst into tears and said, Summoner, thank you. Juhyuk asked again, why is he crying? No need to cry. Meat Shield hugged him and MC thought, his chest hair is getting into his mouth. Hair! A voice rang out from the Chinese Special Intelligence Bureau, the deputy commissioner. He has arrived as he requested. Xiao Jun asked why there is no news about the clearing of the 59th floor. The guy replied, well, among the resources they forcibly Narutoized this time, more than half were reported missing in the tower, causing a delay. It seems that cases of players taking their own lives right in the tower are not at all uncommon. Xiao Jun spat and said, they are useless idiots. He asked for the folder on the table, and the guy asked, this? Xiao Jun, the deputy commissioner of the Chinese Special Intelligence Bureau, said, this is a list of players making up the South Korean elite team. The guy asked, what? How did he get it? Xiao Jun asked, why should it matter to him? The guy apologized, and Xiao Jun told him to pick someone suitable from the rookies who had recently signed and bring them here. Those who had already made a name for themselves would make a big splash. As always, absolutely no evidence must be left behind. He must ensure that his homeland will never have to disown him. He stubbed out his cigarette on the ashtray, and the guy saluted and shouted, for the glory of a great nation. Xiao Jun said, they won't make such stupid mistakes as Japan. Publicly naturalize them? Why show your insignificance to the whole world? The player can simply be kidnapped. 2 days later, MC said, no, he said, we can just order delivery. Corsac said, no sir. They must eat ramen for at least 5 days. Only then will their hearts be at peace. But he really won't eat. Summoner Bong? Juhyuk said, ramen for 3 days in a row, that's too much. The system window reported, Barbarian Warrior, summoning unavailable. He sighed and said, he's still unavailable for summoning. Corsac asked, Meat Shield is still unavailable? Since rank up strengthens the soul, it's actually very dangerous. If the upgrade fails, there's a chance of disappearing. MC screamed in fear. Disappearing? Gyondolrae turned around and said not to worry. If he really disappeared, he would have been completely removed from the list. She turned to Corsac in irritation. Him? How dare he scare the young master? Corsac said fearfully. No, it's not like that. Gyondolrae said, young master, the fact that he's unavailable, but his name remains on the list most likely means another reason. MC asked again, another reason? Gyondolrae said, although the probability is extremely low, there are cases where the rank increase is so huge that it jumps 2 ranks or even more. In such cases, the summoning may remain unavailable for several days. Corsac grabbed his head and said with a light laugh, now that he thinks about it, the princess is right. He is simple-minded, so his soul must be pure. MC thought, he doesn't know for sure. If he gets a double rank boost, then he will be the same SSR rank as him, Corsac. MC laughed and asked why he suddenly looked so gloomy. He suggested going to a cafe after they finished the ramen. He thought about it. But what if Meat Shield comes back even bigger than it is now? Since Gyondolrae is now with them, he needs more rooms anyway. He only recently moved, but will he really have to look for an even bigger house? After a while, laughter rang out in the cafe. The guy said, tomorrow is the 66th floor cleanup. Another guy said, this time everything will definitely go like clockwork too. They have a sacred sword, after all. He clasped his hands and said, if only he could hold the beauty Namgaon's hand at least once. The guy asked, how dare he say such things about the heroine? Let him show some respect. MC and Corsac passed by. He is the #1 passerby who hugged Nagaon. After a while, Corsac happily said, here are their drinks and cakes. Gyondolrae asked, is this a cake? MC said, thank you. He received a call on his phone and thought, Captain? He answered. And Kwangil said, Player Bong, it's him, Captain Zhang. He's a little late, but he congratulates him on achieving his 34th consecutive S++ record. MC said, it's all thanks to his support and the items presented. Kwangil said, actually, he wanted to tell him something about the penthouse where Yu Chol-min used to live. MC asked again, the penthouse? He was frightened, thinking why he suddenly brought this up. Did they really find out that Corsac went there? Kwangil cleared his throat and said, they didn't want to pressure him, but if he wanted, they would like to transfer the house to him. They could formalize the transfer of ownership immediately. MC thought, what? He put his hand to his lips and asked, for free? Kwangil replied, yes, and he also rented them the sacred sword at a low price. Please let him consider this a gesture of gratitude from the Awakened Affairs Department. Ju Hyuk thanked Captain Zhang. He would think about it and contact him. Corsac asked in surprise, who was it? MC replied, this house, Corsac. He was there, so he knows, right? Corsac replied, he was amazed because the house was simply magnificent. There's even a rooftop garden, so you can grow lettuce to eat with the beef. Gyondolrae said this house looks worthy of young master status. MC said the department is saying they'll just give him the house. What do they think about that? Corsac made a sign of the cross with his hands and said he's against free housing. In this world, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Capitalism is cold-blooded, and he'll have to pay for it eventually, one way or another. Gyondolrae said, and she thinks he should accept the offer. Compared to the generosity the young master showed, this house is only a modest reward. Juhyuk thought he was confused. Let's admit it. He'll take this house for free. What if the department asks him for a favor later? With his personality, will he even be able to refuse? It will be even harder for him to say no if he gets something from them. He put his hand on the table and said, he's decided. He offered to buy it. He'll get indigestion if he takes it for free. He'll feel better that way. It's just an apartment. He'll just buy it with his own money. Gyondolrae said, that's a wise decision. Corsac said, he's definitely smart. Ju-hyuk thought. He wonders if a house like this is worth around 2 billion won. Maybe he should look for it. Once another billion comes into his account, he will have 4 billion. An apartment like that should be worth it. He found this house on a search engine for 20 million for 1 pyong. 1 pyong is a unit of area equal to 3.5 square meters. MC thought, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions, 20 billion? Korsak asked. What happened? He turned pale. MC cleared his throat and replied, no, he thinks they are done here. They should go home. Now that he thinks about it, do they really need such a big apartment? Korsak replied. He doesn't care where they live, as long as he has Summoner Bong with him. Ju-hyuk said, if the house is too big, it will be hard to clean. Plus, the maintenance fee is high, and if there is a garden, insects might appear. Plus, it's a long walk to the toilet if you wake up in the middle of the night. Korsak smiled and said, he didn't even think of that. He is truly far-sighted. How brilliant. The guys passed by him, and he immediately thought, you just have to look at this. The thick smell of blood and scars on their hands. The faint smell of gunpowder. They also have weapons with them. They are the same cut as him, those who make a living by killing. Guys like these are scurrying around Summoner Bong's apartment. Could this really be just a coincidence? The system window reported, skill, tracking mark. He set marks on the men, and Ju-hyuk asked, Korsak, why is he stuck? Is he coming or not? Korsak laughed and said, he's already coming. He thought, for now, he will keep this a secret from Summoner Bong. Gan sat in the Awakened Affairs department and thought, the sacred sword is a necessary item that neutralizes the dark aura of the undead, but she can't rely on it alone. Dark mummy, dark zombie, dark skeleton, dark ghoul, and even a legion of undead, she has slain hundreds of them to get here. Gan thought, the mental training is complete. She turned around and said, she'll be right back. Kyung-soo said, player Nam Ga-eun, they wish her luck. Min-ah said to take care. The system window reported, entering the 66th floor. Gaeun went inside and activated the mana on her sacred sword. She screamed loudly, and 10 hours later, she returned breathing heavily. Min-ah rushed to her and screamed, Gaeun? She gave her a thumbs up, and the system window reported, she successfully climbed to the 66th floor of the Korean Black Tower. Cleared the 66th floor, progress on the 67th floor. Time limit, 180 days. Min-ah happily said, it worked, it's a success. Kyung-soo said, that's right. Kwang-il shouted, yes, what are they waiting for? We need to issue a press release immediately. A special news broadcast reported the successful clearing of the 66th floor of the tower. The commentators wrote that from now on, Nam Ga-eun is #1 in Korea, a brilliant achievement by player Ga-eun and the Sacred Sword. Everyone was rejoicing on the street, and Ga-eun was being interviewed. She said she didn't do it alone. It's all thanks to the citizens' support. And once again, she wants to express her gratitude to the owner who lent her the sacred sword. MC said he knew she could do it. Now she's bought them 6 months of time. Thanks to her, even if he climbs slowly, he'll easily reach the 60th floors. Yeah, let them keep it up, Captain Jong. Ju-hyuk smiled and said, anyway, just watching TV makes him itchy to fight. He wants to get to the 35th floor as soon as possible. But Meat Shield is still there. The system window said, Barbarian Warrior. He thought, what? The unable to summon indicator disappeared. He stretched out his hand and said, Barbarian Warrior summon. He thought happily, here he goes. Is this SSR? The system window reported, the foolish barbarian Meat Shield. MC widened his eyes in surprise and said, Mr. Meat Shield, welcome back. What? Who is he? Meat Shield replied, he thought he would never return. He is always grateful for being summoned. The system window reported, he is a common barbarian warrior from the Great Plains tribe. His rank is SSR. The system window reported, Diondalre has been chosen and summoned. She thanked MC for summoning her. She froze, and the system window reported, John Korsak has been chosen and summoned. He grabbed his head and said, loyalty. SSR Korsak has arrived for. Summoner Bong, did he decide to reveal their existence to others? MC replied, no. Korsak said, then who, anyway, is this man? He watched them being summoned. MC said, this is Meat Shield. Korsak asked for forgiveness. Ju-hyuk pointed and said, this man is Meat Shield. Since he successfully raised 2 ranks with a summoning rank up rune, it seems his appearance has changed a little too. Mr. Meat Shield, he replied. He always trusts the summoner's words and listens to them. Ju-hyuk asked, could he by any chance recite the 3 principles of summoned beings? Meat Shield replied, he can. Meat Shield said, the first principle is to protect the summoner's life. The second principle is, the summoned must absolutely. He froze and said, the summoner. MC said, yes, this is definitely their Meat Shield. He laughed and asked, since Meat Shield has returned, maybe they should enter the tower for the first time in a long time? Korsak said, that sounds good. Diondalre replied, she understands. The system window announced the entrance to the 34th floor of the tower. Meat Shield said, the barbarian warrior will go ahead. The rest of you should go with Summoner Bong. MC thought, Meat Shield used to be 3 meters tall, and now he's only 190 centimeters. Will he be able to fulfill the role of a tank with a shorter body? He's worried. He said, Mr. Meat Shield, he thinks it would be better if he goes with Mr. Korsak and receive Princess Diondalre's buffs in advance. Diondalre replied, she'll prepare everything right away. Meat Shield said, the barbarian warrior wishes to test the power of his enhanced body alone without anyone's help. Summoner, he asks him to do so. Let him trust Meat Shield. MC smiled and replied, okay. He whispered, if anything happens, let Korsak be ready to intervene immediately. Korsak replied, just trust him, sir. Meat Shield approached the Minotaur from behind and screamed loudly, releasing mana. The monsters turned and growled, and MC's eyes widened in surprise. He thought he was supposed to lure them out one by one, Why did he deliberately gather so many? Is he turning back into the old meat shield? Corsac screamed, no, he's even bigger than before. MC thought, 4 meters? 5 meters? God, he's almost as huge as the Minotaur. MC thought, he didn't get smaller, he got even more reliable. Meat Shield started to quickly attack the monsters, who were screaming loudly. The Minotaur looked at him, and Meat Shield quickly struck. Corsac said, Meat Shield doesn't look so stupid during the fight anymore. Juhyuk said the same thing. He would have taken popcorn if he knew this would happen. Anyway, he thinks giving Mr. Meat Shield the summoning rank up rune was a good idea, right? Corsac clenched his jaw and screamed, this is cheating. Pure and simple. A complete breakdown of the game balance. He used the rune too, so why is this guy twice as strong? This is so annoying. This doesn't make sense. They should cancel this. Gyandalre screamed, he is an insolent idiot. How dare he express such vile thoughts in front of the young master? This is a joyful event because the young master is now safer. Let him think about his behavior. Corsac said, he was wrong. MC said, Princess Gyandalre. Lord Corsac addresses her respectfully, so he would like her not to speak to him so rudely. Correcting him all the time, it is somehow wrong. And when she screams, it scares him too. Gyandalre said sadly, she will gladly accept punishment for disturbing the young master's peace of mind. MC asked her to try to address Lord Corsac politely. Gyandalre asked, will he forgive? MC said quickly. Gyandalre hesitated and then lowered her head and said, Lord Corsac, she thinks she was too harsh. From now on, she will be more careful. Corsac smiled and shook her hand, saying, it's okay. MC said they had a deal. He suggested they stop fighting each other. He thought, first of all, his heart skips a beat when the two of them argue. Meat Shield was fighting the monsters at that moment when suddenly one of the minotaurs stabbed him in the back with its horns. Juhyuk cried out in fear. Mr. Meat Shield. He completely forgot about him. Meat Shield screamed loudly and began attacking the monsters even more vigorously. MC thought in surprise. He had both durability and destructive power. The ride quality was simply amazing. The system window reported that he had successfully completed the 34th floor of the Korean Black Tower. Meat Shield returned to its original size and said that the 34th floor was too easy for SSR Meat Shield. The barbarian warrior wanted a stronger floor. He could fight as much as he wanted. MC replied, he understood Mr. Meat Shield. He thought, it seemed like S+ ranked clearouts wouldn't be a problem anymore either. He suggested they climb higher floors faster.